Good afternoon, and welcome to this seminar about bioeconomy, and especially with a European dimension. How to cooperate, how to develop bioeconomy in Europe. I am especially glad to have the honor to welcome the Minister of Economic Affairs in Finland, Olli, Rehn, and also the political advisor Therese Knapp from Sweden, representing the Swedish Minister of Energy, Ibrahim Baylan. Just to explain to all of you who are not Swedish, in Sweden we have had for more than 30 years an ongoing battle, 35 years, 40 years, an ongoing battle about our nuclear plants. And we have also had a referendum to close them down, and we decided to do so. 2010 was the last year they should run. Now it is 2016, and they are still up, running and producing electricity without carbon footprint. So in a way it is a good production. But it has created long political tensions in Sweden. And just now there is a commission representing all political parties in Sweden, the main political parties, who are trying to find a compromise how to go on with the energy supply in Sweden, because it's a necessity for a developed industrial country to have a secure and also an environmentally friendly supply of energy for a foreseeable future. Hopefully they will reach an agreement this week, delayed I must say, but hopefully. If that's the case, that will explain why not the minister himself is present today. That is the reason. But we are glad to welcome Madam Knapp, and we are looking forward to hear her intervention in this discussion. As you all are aware, the Paris Summit decided or gave the recommendation to use our forests to combat climate change. That is extremely important. But to be honest, there are not always a popular support to do so. People love wood products, but they don't like cutting trees. And I think they will also be firm supporters of bioeconomy, but there will be a resistance against using the raw material from the forests. We have, when we are discussing how to develop bioeconomy, we have also to focus upon that dimension. We have to have a popular support for using our forests. We have to have a good narrative, how to plant, how to thin, how to cut, how to take it into industry, how to produce new things that can replace products based upon oil, and in such a way combat climate change. The whole narrative, not only the bioeconomic narrative, the whole narrative started in the forests. I am myself a forest owner, and I am a forester. Hands-on. I love that life. I'm living my dream, so to say. After having been a prime minister for very, very many years, I started as a farmer with meat production and forestry. It's a very good life. But I can see one thing, and that is, it's not especially economic successful to be a forest owner today. It is not. Everyone is talking about forest as a resource, a raw material for the new industrial revolution. Everyone. Welcome. But we need also to see a link to the production And we are extremely successful in the Nordic countries with our forestry. We are extremely successful. But we don't always have the popular support to use our raw material. This is not only a problem, it is a challenge. Because if we can't solve that, others will take the lead to develop bioeconomy. Because this is not a European invention. This is research and science, and that is truly international. If we hesitate to do it, others will do it. And if we hesitate to do it, economies like the Finnish and the Swedish will be heavily hurted. We need to be in the forefront. We need to take the lead. We need to have an open intellectual discussion about how to use our forests and to give the best narrative, how to use it in such a way so we can combat climate change. This is a part of the reason why we are meeting here today in Helsinki. The other part of the reason is, we all know, Finland is going through a hard period. Hopefully it has turned around. But despite that, Finland is one of the countries in Europe taking the lead in the bioeconomic development, together with Germany. And we have all reason to salute the Finnish government doing so. Now we also have reason to remember that in Finland you have one of the most important European institutions when it comes to forestry and forest industry, and it is the European Forest Institute in Joensuu, supported heavily by the Finnish government in difficult times, and thank you for that, but also attracting researchers and scientists to Finland, also giving the domestic debate an input that an international organization can do. It's truly European, but it is anchored in Finland. Therefore, we are meeting here today in Helsinki, and I wish you once more warmly welcome, and we are looking forward to your interventions, and we are looking forward to the summary that my co-chair, Mr. Esko will do in the end of the conference. And that will also be published together with our signatures in international media. So therefore, once more, welcome, and I now give the floor to the director of EFI, Marc, please.
Thank you, dear chairs, Minister Rehn, distinguished participants, excellencies. Tervetuloa. Welcome to ThinkForest. As probably most of you know, ThinkForest events are usually happening in Brussels at the European Parliament, because one of our main goals was to build a better understanding on forest-related questions by European policymakers and politicians. But as Mr. Persson mentioned, right now there are very good reasons why we want to host this event on the future of the bioeconomy here in Helsinki. I would like to add to the thanks by Mr. Persson to the Finnish government for the confirmation of the financial reinforced support that the Finnish government will provide to the European Forest Institute. And especially one of the reasons why this new support is coming is because the Finnish government, together with other governments, expect EFI to play a more prominent and visible European role in fostering a science-informed dialogue on the future of the bioeconomy. So thank you again to the Finnish government. Since yesterday we had a very inspiring dinner with the two chairs and many of the speakers. I wanted just to finish my intervention before going to the seminar with a general reflection that is inspired from the dinner yesterday, and you can correct me if I didn't capture well. But I think every several hundred years, our societies suffer a paradigmatic transformation. Society reorganizes itself within a few decades, due to intellectual, economic, or social developments, and then it puts the basis for a totally new era. This happened in the 13th century when the center of gravity moved to the cities. It happened in the 15th century with the emergence of Renaissance, the invention of the printing machine, the Protestant Reform. And maybe I would be quite right if I said that the last really paradigmatic transformation took place a bit more than 200 years ago. In those days, an Anglican clerical, Robert Malthus, wrote his essay on the principle of population, where basically he was arguing that the exponential population growth of Western Europe could not be matched by a similar increase of land productivity. He was quite right. What probably he didn't know is that just a few kilometers from where he was writing his essay, there was another person, a Scottish man called James Watt, who had in those same days invented the steam engine. The steam engine triggered an industrial and agricultural revolution without precedents. Within years, production moved from the workshops to the factories. That was the beginning of capitalism, because you needed a really new level, a scale of investment to run factories. So capitalism started. A new class was developed, the workers. Patents, the concept of patents were developed. The first engineering schools started. So the concern by Malthus was very much answered by the power of science, the power of technology. In a few decades, the population of England multiplied by 4. That's true. That was to be expected. But the national product multiplied by 14 times. So you can see how the challenge was faced by new technology. And I think now, after more than 200 years of an industrial era, we have been able to deliver growth and prosperity in many parts of the world, but also we have created probably the largest environmental externality of our history, which is climate change. And if you look at nowadays, the challenges we are facing, in many ways, they are very similar to the challenges we were facing more than 200 years ago. Overpopulation in some areas, a scarcity of resources, social unrest in many places. So in a way, very similar. The big difference is the scale. Now we are talking about billions. In those days, it was millions. It's a global scale. On the top of it, we have the problem of climate change, and a structural problem, and we will need to deal with that. So I really believe that within the next decades, we are going to experience a similar paradigmatic transformation as we experienced 200 years ago. The computer is the steam engine of our times. Advances in robotics and technology and science are faster than ever. So in the coming years, we will need to force a paradigmatic transformation. Basically, we need to learn to deliver growth within the renewable boundaries of our planet. It's as simple and as difficult as that. Growth needs to be based on the power of nature. So we need to move from an inertia of 200 years of a linear fossil-based economy towards a circular bio-based economy. It's not going to be easy. The term fossil also means resistant to change. Fossil means resistant to change. So it's going to be difficult. But remember that bio means life. And there is no more powerful driver for change than life. So with that reflection, I want to finish my intervention and really wishing a very fruitful conference today. Thank you very much.
Olli Rehn to take the podium.
Olli, before you start, you have to tell us, are you a forester as well? So what is your ownership today?
With pleasure, Esko. Thank you. Prime Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of forests, it's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here today with you and to share some thoughts on the bioeconomy, especially forest-based bioeconomy. As Esko was requesting, and I have to make a revelation here, I'm also a forest owner In my summer cottage, we have a plantation of real latifundia, plantation of 3,300 square meters, which is slightly less than half a hectare. So with our daughter, we have christened that some 17 years ago already as the forest of half a hectare, which is known to everybody from the volumes of Winnie the Pooh, who had such a forest. I can't claim that I would be a major industrial producer, nevertheless, but it is my hobby as well, as Göran said, to spend a big part of my summer doing some forestry work, even in this small forest. So, dear friends, let me thank the European Forest Institute for organizing this forum, and Prime Ministers Esko and Göran Persson for their very valuable and important contribution. Today I will focus on the role of forest-based bioeconomy in Finland and Europe, and on what might be the role of the European Forest Institute. In fact, I'm very glad to have Therese Knapp here with as my colleague to speak today. And to Göran, I can say that I fully understand that Ibrahim has to be in Sweden in these very important negotiations on the direction of energy policy of Sweden, especially with the background that Esko and myself, we used to be good pals of Thorbjørn Fälldin at the time when he was fighting for sustainable ecological development, also in the field of energy policy. So now it is the task of Ibrahim to deal with the political fallout of all the activism and campaigns we had at some point against nuclear power. So I wish Ibrahim and his colleagues the best of success in this climate-wise and energy-wise very important endeavor, which, by the way, also has importance for Finland because we are all part of the common Nordic electricity market. As regards the bioeconomy, there are 4 unquestionable priorities or preferential properties of biological resources to be kept in mind. First is renewability. Second is CO2 friendliness. Third is the potential for and multi-use formats. And fourth, the new functions and features such as longer lifetime, higher durability, strength and density, and reduced toxicity. The bioeconomy should not be perceived only as the only way to save the planet, but rather as one essential element in finding sustainable solutions to the major contemporary challenges we face globally. At the global level, and that's something that always strikes me when I recall this fact, it is estimated that by 2030, that's in less than 15 years, we will need 50% more food, 45% more energy, and 30% more water than today. Thus, the bioeconomy is no silver bullet, but it is still of great value in those cases where biological resources are physically available in abundance, like forests in the northern European countries, such as Sweden and Finland, or were available with the help of smart technologies like biotechnology. And here one can say that we are on the edge of a new economic era. In Finland, we are convinced that a very important next wave in the development of the global economy is bioeconomy. With this, we refer to an economy that relies on the sustainable use of renewable natural resources to produce materials, energy, products and services. It will reduce our dependence on fossil resources, prevent losses of biodiversity, and help creating new and sustainable economic growth. Bioeconomy is a strong instrument in solving global problems caused by the rapid population growth, followed by an increased demand on food, feed, energy, and raw materials. Bioeconomy has also an important interface with the circular economy. Concerning Finland, Finland is a country with substantial forest resources and significant knowledge in this field. Throughout centuries, forests have provided food, fuel, shelter and source of livelihood, as well as opportunities for economic development for our people. The sustainable management of forests is indeed vital for the Finnish people, as forests provide numerous and significant, I would call them ecosystem services to everybody in this country. And I will also try to prove Göran wrong in a sense that forestry can also be economically profitable and sustainable in the Nordic countries. The volume of wood in Finnish forests increases every year. And this is something that I want to underline to say those who come from rest of Europe, because this is not always well known or well understood or come from the rest of the world. Some figures, the total volume of wood in Finnish forests was almost 2.4 billion cubic meters last year, 2015. So 2.4 billion cubic meters. The annual growth of Finnish forests has for a few years already exceeded 100 million cubic meters. Annual felling has for a long time been significantly smaller than annual growth of forests. So you can see that it is sustainable also in the light of these figures. At the same time, Finland has strong know-how in forestry, forest industries, technology, construction, energy, chemistry, food and health sciences. Innovation, as well as cooperation and combined technologies in these fields make Finland a real forerunner in the field of bioeconomy. The bioeconomy is indeed therefore a great opportunity for countries like Finland and Sweden, and I would also say countries like the Baltic states where there is a strong abundance of forestry resources. 2 years ago, Finland launched an ambitious program on the bioeconomy. Its objective is to create 100,000 new jobs and to increase the turnover of bioeconomy from 60 to 100 billion euros by the year 2025. And this program was prepared in cooperation with all stakeholders in the country, which is the Nordic Scandinavian way of preparing key policies. The Finnish government has recognized bioeconomy and clean tech as spearheads, as key economic priorities in the government program. Altogether, 300 million euros will be allocated extra to activities leading to new business models and larger share of bioenergy in the next 3 years as part of the government program. One key objective is to increase the use of wood by 15 million cubic meters annually and to generate new innovative wood-based products and services. What could they be? Hundreds of different kind of bio-based products have been brought to the market recently or are being developed by the forest industry, but also by the chemical industry, the agro-food industry, and by the energy and construction sectors. These products and services include various kinds of transport fuels, bio-oil and biogas, dissolving pulp, microfibrillated cellulose, wood composites, and construction materials. I'm sure that there are, in the course of today's discussions, better engineers than myself to explain in more concrete terms what you can do of this, but just to illustrate the possibilities that are included in the bioeconomy and relevant industries, products and services. Dear friends, in Finland, investment in the forest industry has, after a long period of decline, has started recently to grow, and the total value of ongoing and planned projects is estimated to be at least 3 billion euro, above 3 billion euros. The interesting thing is that while we had, unfortunately, we had a fairly long but slow decline of especially paper industry because of many factors, not least the fact that digitalization is proceeding and there is less need of newspaper and fine print products. At the same time, in more recent years, we have seen the recovery of pulp industry. And while speaking under the control of for instance, Mr. Jatinen from the Federation of Forest Industries and Professor Ollikainen, who are the real experts in this field, I can say that there have been two factors which have saved or are saving the Finnish forestry industry, only slightly exaggerating. One is Amazon.com, because of the need to have packaging material in the world of digitalization. And the other one is the Chinese consumer who demands soft paper, which is another source of demand for pulp industry. But it's not the old-fashioned pulp industry, which was very polluting and using plenty of electricity. It is a very different kind of pulp industry. And in fact, when pulp factories are produced now in Finland, are constructed in Finland, they are in fact rightly so called bioproduct factories. For instance, Metsä Fibre is constructing a large bioproduct factory in Äänekoski, central Finland, which is the largest individual industrial investment in the history of Finnish forest industry. In addition to high-quality pulp, the mill intends to produce bioenergy and various biomaterials. 1/5 of the turnover of the Äänekoski bioproducts mill will be derived from products other than pulp. The mill site already hosts several other wood processing companies, and the number of these is growing. The plant is the first one of its kind in the world to be connected to a pulp mill. Metsä Fibre is actively seeking companies to invest in further processing of its side streams. And thanks to the raw material availability, reliable operating environment and skilled workforce, Finland is an excellent investment destination for companies to invest in the bioeconomy here. So, ladies and gentlemen, in Europe as well, we need a shared goal and approach in the field of bioeconomy. Our common bioeconomy goal is sustainable growth and sustainable well-being, to reduce our dependence on fossil fuel and fossil raw materials, and of course to combat the climate change. Moreover, the EU's policy for bioenergy sustainability should contribute to the development of bioenergy markets and enable to increase the use of sustainable bioenergy. EU policy on bioenergy sustainability should be developed primarily by utilizing the existing legislative instruments and other policy instruments, and thus avoiding excessive administrative burden and respecting the principle of better regulation. The circumstances, of course, vary in EU member states, and therefore the strengths in the bioeconomy differ by member state by member state, and region by region in Europe. It is essential to work together towards a sustainable, flexible, and competitive European bioeconomy that is widely accepted by our people, by the whole society. The common objective is to develop products and services to the internal market and export markets, which globally pave the way for a more sustainable production and consumption. At the level of the European Union, there are a number of tools available to promote the transition towards the bioeconomy, such as the Horizon 2020 research program or the Rural Development Program. And I'm sure that the Commission's advisor, Thomas Arnold, and member of the European Parliament, Miapetra Kumpula-Natri, will explain more to you about these in their interventions. In any case, I want to encourage the Commission and other actors to continue the ongoing work and to enhance policy coherence in the field of bioeconomy. Especially, we need to reduce possible regulatory uncertainties hindering significant bioeconomy investments. We need investment, and that's why we need to have clarity and predictability in the regulatory environment and avoid excessive administrative burden. So, chairpersons, ladies and gentlemen, finally, what could be the role of the European Forest Institute in the field of bioeconomy? I want to underline that the EFI, it's an intergovernmental body with its headquarters in Joensuu, Finland, has ambitious plans to become one of the leading bioeconomy knowledge centers and hub in Europe in this important field. We are certainly very committed to this, and we are very interested in promoting such development, such evolution of EFI towards a bioeconomy knowledge hub for Europe. And I want to encourage us all, including the European Commission and member states, to work together and to make even better use of the quality expertise of EFI and its networks, also in the field of EU's forest-related bioeconomy. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish everybody a very successful seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Rehn, and now we give the floor to the political advisor, Therese Knapp from Sweden.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Minister, Mr. Chair, thank you for having me here, and thank you for accepting our apologies that Minister Baylan could not attend today. But we have heard two good explanations of why. But I'm happy to be here and share the Swedish view on bioeconomy and the importance of forest in the bioeconomy. Let me start off with the stance made by the Swedish Prime Minister and the Swedish government. We want Sweden to become one of the world's first fossil-free welfare societies. Fossil-free. It's an ambitious target, but we believe it's possible. When you look at what is happening in the world right now and coming from the debate in Paris in 2015, we also see that the rest of the world feel the same. This is the way forward. But the question is, how can we do this? Well, we need to start looking at the assets we have and manage them sustainably. Forests make out approximately 70% of Sweden. It was the forest that made us rise from poverty to industry. And forest and forest-based value chain are still key to our economy, and it makes out approximately 15 billion euros worth of exports every year. So forests are simply one of the cornerstones of a bioeconomy. And like all strategic assets, it's enriched by knowledge and considerate management. So we believe that we need to improve both the protection and the environment and consideration of the forest, while we can increase the forest production. We think it's both. You can do this at the same time. We should also look for synergies and sound markets. If you read the EU bioeconomy strategy, it highlights the importance of research and innovation. It also pinpoints policy interaction. To add to this, we like to emphasize the importance of strategic partnerships between countries, between businesses, between academia and business. It's only when the market, the research, and the policy work together, that's when we create the best grounds for getting new products to innovation, to test beds, and finally out to the market. Adding to this, we also need to secure long-term policy framework. One of the most vital components for business development and to get investments is security, market security and policy security. And right now, on both sides, people are asking, what role will the forest be able to take? And getting these investments, we're talking about long-term investment horizons, large scale, and a very systematic shift. So what we should do is not to limit the use of wood. Instead, we should open up the market so the entrepreneurs, the innovators, and the bioeconomies can develop this and show us the way. As the bioeconomy will share or take a major part of the energy transition, I want to spend some minutes also on the energy part of this. 3/4 of today's energy production in the EU makes out of fossil fuels still. So we have an urgent and a necessary shift to make here, to go from the fossil area into the renewable and sustainable area. And it's not only for climate objectives, it's also for the security of supply, it's for industrial competitiveness and to create new jobs. And hopefully we can in the EU come together on the urgency and the benefits at hand and find those solutions that are cost efficient, large scale, and able to deliver already today. And forest biomass will be crucial in this process. We would like to share 3 comments regarding the future EU policy on bioenergy. Firstly, jobs, economic growth, secure and sustainable energy systems are all interlinked and should be handled together. So the objective of the future policy must be to support and not limit an increased use of biomass. Secondly, a new EU policy should respect the member states' national policies and competence and make full use of the national competence while combining it with international agreements. And lastly, the competitiveness of bioenergy and as well as other industry sectors depends on an open and transparent market. What we need is an open and well-functioning biomass market without any indirect trade barriers. That will be crucial when we see that the market demand will increase. All right. Going back to that first stance I opened up with, becoming one of the world's first fossil-free welfare societies. It's ambitious, yes, but it's possible, especially in the Nordic countries where we have the forest here, and we have very good situation to become this. We see that forest and forestry will be at the center when transitioning into bioeconomy. And we believe that we are on a very challenging but inspirational journey, one that will not only be good for the climate, but it will also create new jobs, new businesses, and new export opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Knapp. And now I invite you and Minister Rehn to come up to the podium and take part in a session of questions and answers. Please, here. You sit here, Therese and Olli here. And now I invite you to put questions. Welcome. There we have a gentleman. Short questions.
My name is Antti Kivimaa and I'm from NC Partnering. I try to make it short. EU policy has one fundamental mistake here, which is also being seen already in the speeches. Subsidizing very low value energy use only. I think that's the wrong way to do. Higher value products are not in the core as they should be. And as some sawmill man in the beginning, so I would like to say that the industrial scale wood-based building would be the fastest and the best way to promote also climate change. As is well known, but not, let's say, not everybody accepts it, is the concrete and cement use today. They are about 8% of all CO2 emissions in the world. 8% is a very high figure, and we could do a lot by using more wood in the building. So my question is, what is EFI or other, let's say, people around here going to do to make EU change from subsidizing low-value energy use and to go for products and materials? Not only wood-based building, but also the other things.
Olli Rehn, please.
Thank you. In fact, I would not fully concur with you when you say that the EU is subsidizing the energy use of bioenergy products or bioeconomic products. There is no subsidized system as such. If you refer to the emission trading scheme, for instance, or if you refer to climate policies, yes, they try to direct economic and energy production to less polluting uses and less polluting waste from the point of view of climate change, but that's neutral to different forms of production and different sources of energy. I agree with you on one thing which is important, that of course from the point of view of say Finland or Sweden or any other country which has big reliance on forestry, it is important that we can increase the added value we get from these forestry products. And that's why one of the key priorities of the Finnish government is to increase the use of wood in construction, in buildings, and this work is ongoing. And of course we can make some progress by way of reforming and revising the regulations and providing some support for this in terms of research and innovation. But in the end of the day, it is also a matter of how the construction industry sees demand and supply, and what kind of business decisions are made in the construction sector. Having said that, we have enough wood in the forests for different uses in Finland and in Sweden, and therefore I would not put this in contradiction to each other.
More questions? Aha. There must be. There we have a gentleman, please.
Ilpo Tikkanen from Metsämisten Säätiö Foundation. I have a very short question. How do you see the policy coordination related to forests and forest sector in EU and Commission? Thank you.
Thank you. I could say that I'm an expert on this because in 1994, when there was a vote in the European Parliament on the accession of Finland to the European Union in Strasbourg, on the very same day there happened to be the press conference of the first ever European Union forestry strategy in Strasbourg, and I attended that press conference as a keen spectator and followed the debate ever since. In fact, there has been, for those who are not initiated to this, there have been two schools of thought, even in the Nordic countries. One is that keep the European Union away from any decisions related to forests because it only increases regulation and excessive administrative burden. That's one school of thought. It has its merits. Another school of thought is that if you do that, then you only leave it to those who do not understand forestry from the economic point of view. You leave it, for instance, to DG Environment of the European Commission, which has a little bit different constituency and a little bit different political objectives or policy objectives. So one example of this was a few years ago, 2012 and 2013, when the then DG Agriculture was intending to present a proposal on the sustainability criteria for bioenergy. And as Commission Vice President, I agreed with the then Commissioner for Agriculture that we will not proceed with this because, this as some piece of information for the former colleagues in the European Commission, this was a very bad proposal. It would have led to, say, Mr. Persson having to present his own plan, or any other forestry owner present his own or her own plan of sustainability criteria in that forest. It would have made it in the Nordic conditions of small ownership, smallholdership, life would have been impossible, and the European Union would have become even more unpopular in this country than as it is already. So we stopped that. Now the Commission is making some kind of proposals concerning bioeconomy sustainability criteria. I think it is understandable, but I think it is not necessarily wise to present new legislative proposals. There are other ways and means of facilitating reasonable development in the field of European bioeconomy without creating excessive administrative burden for our citizens and for our entrepreneurs.
And I would like to echo Mr. Minister. Yes, and this in Sweden's position as well. What we are doing is taking an active role in speaking with the EU and the Commission on their ambitions when it comes to the renewable criteria. You cannot not take part in this discussion. There will become something, and we should make the best use of it and let them know how we handle the forest in the Nordic countries, and you can do it in a sustainable way.
And if you allow me, I have also spent quite many years around the table in Brussels. And from the beginning, I was firmly against European Union coming into the forestry activities. And I could see that also had a very good political support in Sweden and still has. But I can also see another development, and that is the European Union is coming into our forests via, for instance, the Water Directive. It's very, very important for us. Habitat Directive, Environment Directive, Energy Directive, and you can add a couple more. And that is also a way to create a European forest policy without the dimension of production. And for us who are producers, who are working in our forests, we already have a lot of regulations set up by Brussels. And we need to balance this with also a production dimension, no doubt. That is perhaps possible to do without creating a European forest policy. But it's not as easy as I thought it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's going in a certain direction. Then we must also know one thing. Just now we have a quite negative attitude to the European Union in many European countries. And the Nordics are not exemptions. But it is not so long ago since it was the opposite opinion. And if you have been around for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, as I have been in politics, I have seen it going up and down. The only thing I realize is we will need the European Union as a framework for developing our industrial efforts to be international competitive in bioeconomy. If that also requires more of coordination regarding forestry activities, then I think we are prepared to accept it. But first you need to have a popular understanding of the problem. You need to have the narrative I talked about before, and we don't have that yet. But I will not exclude that the European Union might become a more active part also in this respect. It will take some time, 10, 15, 20 years. It's not a long period from a historical perspective, but just now it seems like an eternity. But look 10, 15 years back, it was the time when Sweden and Finland entered the European Union 20 years ago. It was yesterday. So I'm a little bit careful today. I'm not so convinced anymore. Then also, and this is also quite funny, I have been a firm enemy to the common agriculture policy until I became a farmer. That is also something to remember. There are different perspectives. But I'm not here to answer your questions. Others are. The gentleman there.
That's a good answer anyways.
Yes.
Thank you. Esa Hermala, Finnish State Forest and Parks. So, any successful bioeconomy strategy must be based on the fact that biomass is considered to be carbon neutral also in the future. Are the Finnish and Swedish governments confident that that will be the case in the European Union and globally, also next decade? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Esa, for a very pertinent question indeed. I can only say that we are really working in order to enable a decision by the European Union that it is considered carbon neutral also in the future. If I'm confident, I usually try to avoid expressions if I'm an optimist or pessimist. I'm a realist. and I believe that by working together with Sweden and other like-minded countries and those who believe in science, we can win this argument, and we can ensure that this goal of carbon neutrality will be maintained also in the future.
I think Mr. Persson just said earlier that it's hard to give any firm statements on what will happen in the EU coming forward. But I agree. We do our very best to show that it's doable, and we have invited both the Commissioner Cañete and Commissioner Šefčovič to Sweden to see our biomass production and the way we use biomass, and we keep a close dialogue and hope for the best.
Sirpa Välimaa, Stora Enso. Mr. Persson, you stated that people love wood products, but they don't like cutting trees. So how you are going to approach this challenge to promote the forest industry, circular economy and bio-based industry?
I already let my brains relax when I heard the name of Prime Minister Persson to be responding to the question. I think it would be much more enlightening to hear Göran give his insights on this. But in fact, he answered in his initial intervention already that there is a very positive image, at least what we Nordics, I guess the other Europeans as well, link to forests and forestry, and therefore we can utilize this positive image of sustainable forest management in terms of facilitating positive attitudes towards the broader bioeconomy as well.
I don't have so much to add, but to say we might be the champions when it comes to research and development, the scientific side of this project. But there must also be a popular acceptance of using our forests. Otherwise, our achievements in the academic world and in research and development will find other places in the world to practice what they have found out. It's truly international. For this reason, this is for us very dramatic, because we have as a backbone in our economies in Finland and Sweden the forestry industry, and that must be modernized, and that must be in the front line regarding research and development. If we lose that battle, our economies will lose a lot of resources and strength, and that will have a tremendous impact on our societies. Cutting a tree means in the end, in our societies, having the resources to give a good education for a young kid. That is what we have to constantly tell, and to also connect it with the latest and best in the scientific field. It's connected to the future. It is forest. That is the type of arguing we need to develop, and we have not always been taking this seriously, and we have a growing problem in many countries in Europe using our forest. We must realize that. And that is also sometimes based upon a forestry activity that is not always possible to defend. It is possible to have a sustainable forestry, and it is possible to combine that with a growing industrial sector. That is what we have to achieve, and that is in front of us. And there are no free lunches even in this area. Yeah. Yes, Esko.
A couple of comments on that, because I think this is extremely important issue. And to be honest, this sector has not been very good in creating that narrative and promoting its interests in the discussion. If you look at, for example, construction sector, it's amazing how metal industry and concrete, those producing concrete materials for construction, have taken care of their interests. Even in countries like Finland, and actually in Sweden, you have the same kind of tradition. So I think we have to be able, for the first, to create that narrative, and then we need joint efforts to promote our interests. And I very much like the idea that the EFI will take active role in this, because we need institutions that are able to promote that discussion. And then I think it's very important also to understand that not only economic development or social development, but also people's thinking doesn't go in linear way. And I think we are now facing a situation when this linear thinking is going to be broken, and that is a great opportunity to get new ideas to flourish.
And that marks the end of this session. Thank you, Minister Rehn. Advisor Knapp. Thank you. Okay. Now we have the European Union views on bioeconomy strategy. Thomas Arnold, Advisor, Sustainable Bioeconomy, DG Research and Innovation, European Commission. Please take the floor.
So, thank you. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, Minister. I'm really happy to be here today and give you some insights from the perspectives of research and innovation on the bioeconomy and how it may further evolve, focusing in particular on forests. Now, EU forests and other wooded land, on average across the whole EU, they cover 42% of total EU land. Okay, in Finland it's much more, but this is the figure across the whole EU. The forest-based industries, they provide 3.5 million jobs, and there's a lot of diversity across Europe. And I can tell you, I'm myself also a small forest owner. I own 3 hectares in the Ardennes. I'm cutting or getting cut trees from time to time. This provides some revenue and keeps the forest up in good health. Okay, looking at this, what do you see in this picture? Many things. Wood, of course, but you see much more than wood. You see other products, you see ecosystem services, you see recreation. So there's a whole multifunctional value of the forest, and this also requires a lot of innovation to capture this multifunctional value of the forest. I've been told to reflect on lessons and possible ways beyond. So one may also be beyond wood. What more is there in a forest than wood? There's been recently a policy conference in Brussels, the 23rd of May, looking at wood and at all the other multiple services. And we've had the Vice President addressing this conference, insisting on the high value of all the other products that you could get out of the forest. And it's not only capturing all the value of all those products, it's also the negative emissions process that forests can provide. He's, of course, talked about the timber and forestry industry in Finland and about Finnish forests and the Finnish culture. Okay, you all know this with the lakes and the saunas and so on. He's also talked about new innovative products that you get out of the forest, bioproducts. And this is not only wood, this is also wood. This is wood for new industries, much more smarter construction industries. This is also cosmetics, this is chemistry, this is a lot of things that you can get out of wood and out of the forest. There's also sustainability, of course, this is important in the context of the new circular economy. And Mr. Katainen has also drawn attention to encouraging the cascading use of wood, use, then reuse, and recycling before its energetic use. There's a wide range of specialized SMEs also that are providing key services. So it's not only products. In the bioeconomy, we've a lot been focusing on products, but the whole economy now makes a shift also towards services, towards solutions. So maybe one of the questions that we could ask ourselves is, how do we also incorporate much better in future this concept of services into the bioeconomy? In that conferences, there were a couple of other flashlights from the European Environment Agency in Copenhagen. What are those forest ecosystem services? What are the threats? EASAC has asked, and it was a Finnish lady, Mrs. Berg, the question if bioenergy from forests are carbon neutral. So be aware this question is widely discussed. Then we've, of course, now in the realm of Paris, the issue of the negative emission technologies. In particular, if we look at the 1.5 degree scenario, we may need negative emission technology. The IPCC lists quite a few, and afforestation and reforestation is currently the major one, which can work at a large scale. There's a lot of scientific development about many other negative emission technologies ongoing. So the EU forests, they provide nature-based solutions, ecosystem services, non-wood forest products, and those can also be used very smartly, and research can develop the use of those products. Innovative wood value chains. I've seen in Sweden, you even make T-shirts out of wood. Bio-based construction is probably something where the bioeconomy can replace to a certain extent the concrete economy. Forest-based industries, for instance, in the BI, and also bioenergy. I'm front-loading my key takeaways and conclusions. The bioeconomy concept is getting stronger in Europe and globally due to expected environmental, economic, social impact, such as on jobs, climate change, food security. In Europe, it is part of important EU policies, such as the circular economy, the industrial renaissance, also renewable energy resource policies, increasingly also on national level. And in Horizon 2020, Societal Challenge 2, we actively promote the bioeconomy, also research and innovation on forests, and also in a complementary industry-led program, the BBI joint undertaking. We realize more and more that framework conditions are important, such as standards, such as access to finance, in order to deliver fully on the expectations of the bioeconomy concept. So this is clearly also one of the lessons, that probably we have to focus much more on those framework conditions, on the right standards, on investments, on how to get access to finance, and so on. Forests, okay, they're clearly important for the wood products, for the non-wood products, for the ecosystem services. Sustainable management of forests is clearly a shared challenge, including for research and innovation policy. The EU bioeconomy strategy, as you know, is currently under review. Member States' input in this process is very much appreciated, and the strategy will probably be updated if deemed necessary to better encompass the decarbonization and also the circularity, while promoting industrial renaissance, dynamic regional economies, and the renewal of key sectors such as agri-food, forestry, waste, marine, and chemical, but also construction. In Bioeconomy 1.0, we focused a lot on chemical industry, but probably construction has the potential to become far more important. So the conclusions: the bioeconomy is gaining momentum. Several EU member states, they currently develop national bioeconomy strategies, following the good examples firstly initiated by Finland and Sweden. Now Spain also has adopted a national bioeconomy strategy. The forest-based sector is and remains important for the development of EU policies in general, including for research and innovation. And supporting the role of the forest-based sector in the bioeconomy is instrumental in reaching a number of overall EU goals, including some of those on the Juncker agenda. The Finnish and Swedish support of the bioeconomy is important and appreciated, with national and supra-regional bioeconomy strategies and initiatives building on initiatives already undertaken at EU level. They are very complex challenges. They require a high level of policy coordination across a range of policies that are key to the bioeconomy, and it's getting rather more complex than more simple. You have climate, you have energy, you have agriculture, and so on, while achieving sustainable economic growth. The role of forests in the and recarbonization of Europe is very important in the context of the EU and energy and climate objectives. The EFI plays, of course, an important role in conveying to its members key messages on forest research and innovation at the pan-European levels. In your views on the future of the bioeconomy and what we can do further at EU level, they are welcome. So those were the conclusions. Now I have a variety of many slides, and I will select on some of those. So first of all, what is the bioeconomy? Okay, this you probably all know. Those parts of the economy that use renewable biological resources from land and sea to produce food, biomaterials, bioenergy, bioproducts. This comes from the 2012 bioeconomy strategy. If you zoom into this graph that we use very often, you see that sustainability is at the very center. Then it's about using better what we already use to ensure food security, moving away from a fossil-based economy and bioeconomy. Forestry, of course, comes in this green part, but then also using well what we don't use yet. And this is, in particular, unlocking the potential of seas and the ocean, because the land is limited, but the seas and the ocean, there's still a lot of potential which are not yet fully unlocked and which are important for the bioeconomy, which is about using biological resources to produce more and better from less. And in particular, research and innovation is crucial to enable the creation of new bio-based value chains from primary production, but increasingly also from waste streams, and maybe we even need in future add a third column to the right of this scheme, which is greenhouse gases, because you know that research also now goes on how can we capture and directly use greenhouse gases as a feedstock. Okay, this is then used for all kinds of nice bio-based products. The bioeconomy is part of the circular economy. In the classical model from the L. MacArthur Foundation, it is the left side, the biological circles. From the Nova Institute, we now have a new model which integrates the technical and the biological circles in one graph. This is the classical model of the circularity of the renewable resources in the bioeconomy. And this is a diagram which shows the different feedstocks, the processes, and the products coming out of this. And I can predict that we probably need to put increased focus on waste in the update of the bioeconomy strategy, in addition to primary products. There's more in the primary, in the bioeconomy than only primary biomass. And if we take the circular economy seriously, then waste is becoming much more important for chemicals, for all other kinds of products, for fibers, for animal feed and food, for fuels, and of course also for heat and power. Getting facts and figures about the bioeconomy is very complex because you have sectors which are partly bioeconomy and partly not, like the chemical industry. If you look at the domestic extraction of biomass in the European Union, you see that agriculture currently is the bulk. Forestry is only 11%. The biomass balance in the European Union, it is mainly consumed for food and for animal feed purposes, which represents 61% of the whole biomass consumption. And animal feed alone represents 48% of total use of biomass. The bioeconomy provides a turnover of 2 trillion and employs 17 million people. Where is the turnover? Mainly in the food and beverage sector. And where are the jobs? Mainly in agriculture. If you then want to draw a map of bioeconomies in the different member states, we find that there's a lot of diversity, and this diversity is of course very important and of course needs to be exploited in the sense that there cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution. You have a couple of countries with a bioeconomy dominated by agriculture. You have other countries with a bioeconomy more geared towards agro-food and bio-based chemicals. Other countries, they focus on forestry downstream industries, and others are non-specialized bioeconomies. Now, why do we need a bioeconomy strategy? This is to increase with the increasing global population, the rapid depletion of many resources, the increasing environmental pressures, climate change. Europe needs to radically change its approach to production, consumption, processing, storage, recycling, and disposal of biological resources, maintain, create economic growth and jobs in rural, coastal, industrial areas, reduce fossil dependency, improve the economic, environmental sustainability of primary production, processing industry. This is from the 2012 communication, you know it. So this is the narrative of the bioeconomy 1.0. If you look at the latest graphs or coming out from the IPCC, if we take the 1.5% scenario seriously, at current rate of emissions, we've 6 years left to eat up the whole budget. 21 years left to remain below 2 degrees. And if we go on with business as usual, it will be 3 degrees warmer in 2070. Food is first to be hit by climate change, possibly badly, but food is also, this looks very complex, but it's very important. If you look at the left column, you see the final use of services producing greenhouse gas emissions. Food is 30% and construction is 15%. So this highlights very clearly, as already said, What can the bioeconomy do, not only to clean up our own mess within food, but also within construction?
Sorry, we are running out of time.
Yeah.
But if you can make it a bit faster.
Planetary boundaries, more obesity, okay. Sustainable development goals, okay. Many reasons for a bioeconomy, and we often also use this one, which we like a lot. Sustainability, maybe this becomes more important in bioeconomy 2.0. And there's the classical model of the sustainability with the little crossed section of sustainability between the social environment and economic. But there's also now another model, a nested model of sustainability with a robust and resilient economy depending on human health and well-being, which needs an intact and functional environment. So this is the timeline of the bioeconomy policies. Important to know that there are the three pillars: investments in research and innovation, policy interaction, stakeholder engagement, market competitiveness. Then bioeconomy observatory, bioeconomy panel, okay, industrial renaissance. Those are things which have been part of the first generation of the bioeconomy so far. Now we also have to consider the overall 10 Juncker priorities with 1, 2, and 3 very closely linked to the bioeconomy. Bioeconomy in Horizon 2020 is very important. Horizon 2020 is the new framework program of research and innovation, coupling research and innovation in one program, and it's challenge-based, transdisciplinary. It has 3 pillars. One of them are the societal challenges, and we are in challenge number 2. And in agriculture and forestry, and also in 2.4 bio-based industries and the bioeconomy, we have forestry specifically mentioned in societal challenge 2. We also have to consider the 3 Commissioner Moeda's priorities on open innovation, open science, and open to the world. Now, this is the to-do list which we have got. Forestry is not specifically mentioned, but of course it is important everywhere. Investments, markets, and the regular environment really becoming more and more important with the links to ESIF, with access to finance through the structural funds, with market conditions, the regulatory environment, and also the new Juncker Fund. I leave all those slides in the presentation for you as reference material. It is not necessary to comment on all of them. We are now in a process of updating the bioeconomy. You find in the slide also the roadmap and the calendar. You see that we count on member states and regions to help us in defining the new 2.2 bioeconomy. We've had a manifesto in Utrecht, and in this Utrecht stakeholder manifesto, forestry was explicitly mentioned. Even among the flagships, there is one possible flagship in this manifesto, or manifesto of the stakeholders, on building with innovative wood products. Regions are very important. I am not commenting on this, just to know regional bioeconomy strategies are crucial. Then also we have now a food pillar, and there is conference in October.
Sorry, we are now running out of time.
Yeah, research innovation agenda for food proofing, nutrition and food system. And I think with this I can close. Because food and nutrition, you know that there is a perfect storm coming up, and we need to make sure we can feed our 10 billion in 2015. And this provides a very important innovation opportunity. You will also see many new interfaces which have not yet been maybe fully thought about. How will the bioeconomy interfere with the new plastics economy, interface with nature-based solutions, interface with eco-innovation economy, with green growth, the low-carbon economy, the economy of ecosystems, the ocean economy, the alignment of health and sustainability agendas. How will we embrace the fourth industrial revolution, convergence of technologies and artificial intelligence? How will we interface with education, with employment, the silver economy in an aging society, the collaborative and the sharing economy, the citizens' biotech economy, resilience, peace becoming more and more important, because also security, externalities and migration. And how will we interface with globalization versus identity and community? And this is now a whole series of new things in innovation that could be interesting, would you find in many different places, even where you don't expect it. Not all plastics.
I'm sorry, I have to conclude now because I think
you.
It's fine.
Again, in those slides, you can look at yourself. And the last point I want to make is new bioconstruction materials, and bioconstruction is not low-tech, as sometimes considered. Now skyscrapers are being built with wood, so wood is very much high-tech and will require a lot of research and innovation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have rules, and that material will be distributed to you. Now we have another speaker from the European Union side, a member of Parliament, Miapetra Kumpula-Natri. She is a member of Committee for Industry, Research and Energy, and also chair of the Bioeconomy Working Group in the context of the Parliament. Miapetra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I must say that I do not necessarily represent the whole Parliament's ideas always, but I maybe take you I take you a tour that how a Finnish person fits in the Parliament, being there for 2 years and trying to find out the reasoning behind the different ideas people come with on the bioenergy and bioeconomy and on construction and the wood and the forest and so because it has been an experiment for a Finnish person to go there. A lot has been said. Did you find it? It seems that I have a wrong. I can make it short and not to present you anything. Put some nice picture with the green stuff. So we save some time, and I do more. I have been listening carefully, so I can more comment what has been there. The big circular picture you started also that it's saying that bioeconomy already exists. It exists in the European Union context. It exists in the market. Exists in the Brussels. It exists in the Parliament. So we do have it here. But then also I challenge, and I very much welcome that it will be reviewed, the whole bioeconomy strategy for Europe, because it also sets unlocking the potential of seas and oceans. My question, why doesn't it want to unlock the potential of forests? As 42% of the land, And I think I could say also that Phil Hogan visited a morning discussion in the parliament, and he took it, the sustainable forestry, as a key message also, that it is a potential. For what we have agreed in Paris Climate Agreement, it has a role for forests. And then when we make the forestry sustainable way, we can see that we should maybe have it in the new strategy, bioeconomy strategy, take out the potential of the forests. So also, it's the figures on the numbers, how much bioeconomy employs, where is the turnover. But 20% of the bioeconomy turnover comes from the forest-based bioeconomy, and with a lot more potential that some other sectors too. I put it very politically right away, and I say that it is very much chemistry-oriented at the moment. It lacks totally the wood construction. It doesn't take sawmills inside at all. So maybe it is the size of the lobbying power in the Brussels that also can be seen sometimes. And the forestry is important in some countries, not everywhere. But I had a visit of the MEP's colleagues from ITRE, the committee I'm with, and the environment, and there were many nationalities who really started to think their potential of their forests. So I think there are positive signs in the air. So as this is also organized by the European Forest Institute, I say that I'm the strong supporter also the enhanced role for European Forest Institute, maybe to give us some scientific background when to tackle these problems and when to tackle these challenges, what could science help us when we look at the forest-based potential on the bioeconomy. So then the joint initiative program by the Commission could be good to have here in Joensuu. So the often mentioned wish is that have some coherence in the politics we are doing in the European Union. At the moment, it is not only that the new forest strategy is put in practice by Hogan and others in the Commission. We had it ready, and that was my first ever file I was working for in ITRE committee, the shadow of the opinion. But I got involved because that was first ever task I had. And it was good to learn the different perspectives in the forestry, the different ideas people have, the politicians, but also the people working in the Commission and in our house. A colleague said that should we add here recreational activities, or should we add here in the new forest strategy that every city should plant some trees in the cities? And I would say, oh, you don't know, you're talking something that is jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs in the Nordic countries, and you're talking about planting some trees in the cities. But then it was one assistant who said that, excuse me, this is a new forest strategy, not a park strategy. So that was my relief. But really, to put some perspective on the targets we are doing in the European level, it is necessary. And I admire parks. I love them. In Brussels, you need them. But then also, I must say that the picture, the gentleman, Arnold, just showed me, it was taken in the Blue Forest in Brussels. I recognize it because it's the most beautiful place on earth on the May, the Blue Forest. But it was a joke also for a Finnish person lived in the forest, from the forest, and for the future of forest, that there you can walk on the pathway, and then there is a sign that do not step away from the path to the forest. And that's not a forest on the sense that we are talking about forest when we are talking the economy of the forest. That's a park, that's the nice to go and see, and that's kind of good thing. Multifunctionality was one question also that we face nowadays in Brussels. And it is difficult for a Finn to see that. We do have every man's right. Is it the right term in English? That everyone can go pick up berries. Everyone can go and hunt in the forest, whether it's owned by the state, whether it's owned by Göran Persson, whether it's owned by my mother. We can go and hunt we can go pick up berries, we can go pick up mushrooms, and I don't want to see EU to saying that these are values that eliminate possibilities to count what the wood price is on the markets. This is everyday life for our family. It's my mother still very bad legs, limping almost, and bringing the berries for whole family. The only problem is to take them via airports to Brussels because you cannot carry frozen berries. I've tried it and they blocked me at the security. So multifunctionality is there. Of course, it's not one or another, at least not in Finland or not in the forest that I've been visiting. You can camp there, and you only cannot go to the 100 or 200 meters from the yard. But these are the questions that I never thought that I have to explain to someone. But then we had the 10 MEPs in Finland, and we visited the forest site. And actually it was an historical visit, because it was 2 committees together. ITRE committee in charge of the industry, innovations and energy, and ENVI committee in charge of environment and consumer, the healthy production. So we visited together the forest site. We drank water from the well. We visited the sawmill. And very honest question was that, how should we think this one, because there is no waste? How can we legislate this one, because there is no waste? How we put this into circular economy? Because every chip or every fiber of the wood was used. You had the pellets. After you cleaned the floor, there is some dust left. You put them into pellets. Then some parts you decorate your gardens. You'd make business out of everything. Finland is not that rich country that we didn't invent it already a few years ago. It's every chip of the wood and the wood is used when you go there. And second observation I had, that we visited wood element factory. And colleague of mine who's strongly also with me on the idea and opinion that it's strange that wooden construction is not in the part of the bioeconomy strategy, as it could replace cement and concrete, as was mentioned here in the question, which are very energy intensive. So why doesn't he see more wooden houses in Finland? Why so few wooden houses in Helsinki? And I would say that let the Asians compete that who has the highest building in the world. Shouldn't we compete who has the highest wooden building in Europe? And I wonder why Finland, or I haven't heard Sweden is competing that. I heard Norway is doing something, I heard Austria. So I want to challenge many stakeholders here that please take these showcases that we can also champion, that we can, and there is knowledge. I know many industries have now commented and are commenting also the Commission that wood construction is something, and I'm happy to hear that it was mentioned that might to be included in the future strategy for the bioeconomy. So these were the observation also my colleagues had when visited a site in Finland. No waste, not always necessary to find new legislation there. Wooden construction more, multifunctionality, it's not black or white. And then value creating is somewhat not that easy to do. So if we have succeeded in Finland and in some countries, why not to succeed in the European level? And Olli Rehn, the minister, put it very well. Sometimes you are afraid that Europe would not let you be as progressive as you want, but at the same time some believe that Europe can be progressive as a whole as well, and I try to believe for the last one and believe for the common European Union solutions as well. So if I put together, why do we need bioeconomy? We do need bioeconomy. It's not something that why do you have to take again this sustainability up on the agenda. We need it because of the post-fossil society. Marc Palahí here started that we need to move from fossil to the bio-based circular economy. And I want to add one megatrend more. And that's my other hobby in the parliament, it's digitalization. I love when I heard Ansip once quoted that even the cows, they produce more milk after the digitalization. And I know many people here that when you have knowledge of the forest and you know what's growing in the hectare you have, you get more wood productions. But there is even more. I learned on the robotics last week, and I want to share that with you because it sounds like a future, but it's nowadays already. The dramatic change will happen in transportation also. We know that. And yes, we know there has been some difficulties, and there is some difficulties still that compare electric car and the biofuels. And I think we need both, because that's not overnight that we will have electricity cars all over produced by renewables, non-fossil. And then if we want to put that to happen as was so from IPCC, we need quick solutions. But what I learned, and I don't know how many of you know, have you heard about droids, or you have seen them in the sky? And I talked with my children less than 10 years. What's the problem? It's of course charging and batteries. But there is an institution that have tried already that they can eat bugs. And that comes for the biofuels then. So there is a future for the even biofuels, not maybe wooden biofuels in the air, but anyway, a lot will be happening, and we need the knowledge of the bioeconomy, because in the end I had some pictures here, and one of the pictures was from the panel, high-level panel, where I represented the parliament then. And then there was very basic level discussions, as I had to argue with the DG Environment representative, Mr. Rosa, who is in charge of this bioeconomy sustainability criteria, because he insisted comparing coal and wood on the burning. And I think European Union should respect IPCC, not only the years and reflect some parts of it, but IPCC has agreed that it's carbon neutral when it comes to the wood. I had colleagues who didn't speak very good English, so I've been drawing a tree that yes, when it grows, it absorbs the CO2, and only when you use it, emissions are there. But if you build a house, it will be a storage for 100 years, and the residues will be used for the bioenergy or whatever solutions. Solutions are there are markets, there are people fighting for these particles of the trees, so I believe that all kind of hierarchies is impossible to make in the cabinet of the parliament or even commission. So arguing on some basic things that if we do have a sun, soil and rain, there will be biomasses forever. If there will not be biomasses, there will not be even European Union, not to talk about Brexit or something else. If there is biomasses, we need to take care of the sustainable use and make it wise. So then my motivation is to work to make Parliament and even Commission to seek for the possibilities for the forest-based biomasses, that we need them, and they are the solution for the big picture we have ahead. So I think also I'm waiting, this is just a tiny detail, but bioeconomy exists also elsewhere, not only in European Union, and we are not leading the way. And that's my very big worry. I learned only that in USA they have bio-preferred program when it comes to the public procurement. I had a written question on a commission, and they said that yes, they are preparing, and I think they are still preparing and seeing the possibilities that could we have something like bio-preferred, when you have a fossil and bio product, that in public procurement you could see it. Yes, we do have a green public procurement, but then we should have basic principles how we want to see and urge the bioeconomy to develop more and make room for it. I believe, I'm still, and I hope I will see you after 1 or 2 years, I'm still that optimistic that we will do a good sustainable bioeconomy strategy, and not the bioeconomy strategy which is sustainable only for the nature, but not for the future investment, not for the future humankind and for the Europeans. We need urgently new business models, new ideas and sustainability for the world, and I hope the Europe could lead the way again. Thank you.
Thank you, Miapetra Kumpula-Natri, member of the European Parliament. Now, I said before, there are 2 countries in Europe that has taken the lead. One is Germany. And now we have the honor to welcome Professor Christine Lang, co-chair of the German Bioeconomy Council. Please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me to this really very interesting workshop. I think now, after we heard a lot about what politics can do, maybe we can have a look at what policy consultancy can also try to do. So I'm, for the past 4 years, been part of the German Bioeconomy Council. And when I started in 2012 in Germany, we had the bioeconomy seen as something that is biomass to energy, and that was not well perceived with the public. And we started to rethink bioeconomy, and actually it all came to be part of a Global Bioeconomy Summit last year, and we're still working, of course, after this, but that was one of the key points that we try to achieve. Actually, bioeconomy is nothing that difficult to understand. You could make it completely complex and talk about every detail of it, but basically, bioeconomy is something that's really easy to grasp as an idea. It just is nothing more than, but nothing less than reconciling human living with nature. So we have to try to restore natural capital ecosystems. Innovation and green growth combine these two things and get to inclusive and healthy societies. And this all together, this is bioeconomy. So it's not that difficult, but of course it's the way to get there is not that easy. If we look back a few years, then bioeconomy was something that is completely different from what we see today. 10 years ago, it started to get this bioeconomy concept. In about 2007, we had Germany was presiding in the EU, and we had this Cologne paper. It was called a first EU-wide paper on bioeconomy initiated by Germany. At that time, bioeconomy had a completely different view than today. It was a time when there was this peak oil, the scarcity of oil and fossil fuels and fossil biomass, fossil raw material was discussed. Prices were steadily increasing. Biotechnology was already there. It's a very interesting and innovative technology. And bioeconomy was thought to be just a substitution of fossil fuels. This has changed over the last years. And when we look at bioeconomy today, what we see now is that we have, that there are more new explorations of oil. The availability of oil is rather good, so it's not really a decrease completely. You have volatile prices, low prices, so you cannot really count on this, that biomass is more expensive or cheaper than oil, or more expensive. In addition to biotechnology, you now have these digitalization, we just heard a bit about the converging technologies that come into the field. And of course, we have all these different global assessments, like the climate agreement, CO2 neutrality to be have till 2050. So looking at this, you will see that there's a completely different picture. Going from substitution now to innovation for sustainable development. I think this will accompany us for the next years if we look at bioeconomy. And a good example is if you look at the sustainable development goals that have just been put up, you find that bioeconomy can indeed contribute to a number of these goals. And we just put on there a few of them, and you can go into many of these and see that bioeconomy must play a part in achieving such goals. Looking around the world, you're completely right. It's not just EU and European countries that are part of the bioeconomy movement, let's say. The Bioeconomy Council, the German Bioeconomy Council last year put together this international plan where all bioeconomy strategies are found in the world. In some countries they are not called bioeconomy, but if you look into the strategies, you see that it's basically bioeconomy. You see, and I completely agree, you see a lot of economy strategies, like in all the countries. There are only some, the gray ones, that not have any, but we know that many are discussing. So this is a global movement that really has started somewhere in the principal countries, but it's going into in all the different countries. Now the question is this something that, do they all want the same? Let's call it that. And of course the answer is no, because it depends, it clearly depends on what the countries are aiming at and what their basic is. So we see a whole complexity there. Even if we just look at the development in Europe, we can see this. And just mentioned, there are many countries are now in these policy developments, like Spain. They have just adopted an action plan in March. France and Norway, we know that they're both involved in setting up dedicated strategies. In Germany, the bioeconomy strategy is just put under evaluation and to see what has been achieved over the last years and to set up the second phase of that. And there are some other countries where strategy development is in progress. In addition to this, it's not just national ones, it's also that you find macro regions. We hear, of course, Nordic countries, they are doing things, the Baltic Sea region. They formed a Bioeconomy Council in February this year, a Blue Bioeconomy Roadmap in the Nordic countries, and we also see this region forum in Eastern Europe. And to make it even more complex, you sometimes see regional complexes, smaller, below national level, and see all these different regions. And I think all these developments are necessary to represent the complex part of a bioeconomy and to make those seen. So I guess the major challenge for European government and for the European Commission is to put all this under an umbrella, and not more maybe, because there are so many initiatives, but just look if you find an umbrella for all this. Looking at all these different things, we can up when we looked into this, that there are still common challenges. And maybe this is also a very important point to point this out. It's regional diversity, it's complexity, but still, if you look at it, there are some challenges that are really found in all these countries and all the strategies. I will point to 4 of those, and these are, in my opinion, the most important. The first thing is this support and buy-in from society. And we have heard this word of having a narrative to get people in, to engage society on this as one of the most important things that we are facing in the next years. Because if we do not recognize that society is one of the main drivers of bioeconomy, we will probably fail in the future. The second thing is, which I'm a biologist by training, so this for me is clear, but maybe we also should talk about that. Know-how is one of the second drivers. So innovation and know-how and setting up technical breakthroughs and thinking about bio-based sustainable processes and scaling up especially is also the second major challenge we are facing. Of course, we always look at, I'm CEO of a company, so I know the next one, it's cost competitiveness. We will have to look into these novel products and services that can compete on the market, but still we have this possibility, you mentioned it before, public procurement, to give a chance of new product and new processes to get into the market and find a market in the first part. And of course, the fourth point then is we also need to monitor what we're doing and to talk about it and find what the impact is on employment and on turnover and things like that. This turns out to be quite a difficult point, not only on European level, but also on the German level. From all these was looking at these different countries and looking at the common challenges that we encountered, we had we set up the initiative about 1 year ago to have a Global Bioeconomy Summit, to get together all the stakeholders on the different countries internationally a first time and have them talk about, discuss what are the challenges and where are we going to. Is there something that we can do on the policy level together? So we set up this meeting on bioeconomy last year in November in Berlin, and because of course we saw this, it's a dynamic development, and you are also part of this and see this, but it's fragmented. It's time to connect actors to really get to the whole potential that there is. And of course, we know that we have to embrace diversity. We have to promote a systematic collaborative approach. That was the idea. And as last year was also the global alignments on COP21 and SDG, we thought it's timely event to put this together with bioeconomy. We did this and in November in Berlin, and we had more than 700 participants from 80 countries. Very important, we had also presented this before in International Advisory Committee to get together expertise from all the countries to understand where all the nationals are looking at, what is important in different parts of the world. And you see a lot of partners involved, and we also involved not only the professional part, let's say, but also stakeholders like NGOs and the civil society to get them all put together. So what has come from this? What are the lessons learned, if we try to put this as lessons learned from this? It was clear, that was a very important thing for me also to learn. There are common goals, and we can indeed identify those. So it's all going for sustainable development, and unanimously it's food first. So food security is something that we need to provide with a sustainable and innovative bioeconomy. In some countries it's jobs is first. In other countries, it's ecological transformation and health and well-being, depending on the state of the economy of the country. However, as I said before, you do find huge diversities, and you have to respect those. It is started with a definition. Some countries, health is part of bioeconomy, and others not. And some have a technology and knowledge focus, others have a biomass focus. And of course, emphasis is different on the sectors and on the feedstock, depending exactly on the economy that we come from. And of course, the discussion has been very vivid on what approach and society involvement can be done. So what you see from this is there is a lot of initiative, a lot of ideas, a lot of activity on this, but little policy coordination and integration in multilateral processes. So this, of course, is then one of the aims that has to be done. The International Advisory Committee has set up a communiqué to try to focus on a few points that are necessary, and to come to the most important 3 points are these. What we need to do in the future is promote the innovative technologies. Second is establish good governance, national and internationally. And third is to strengthen and initiate dialogue and cooperation internationally. And these 3 points, just a few words on this. Promoting the technology, it's important, still important to invest in R&D, because that has started with this, but we need to go on with this. It's not a one-day job, let's say. Education is important to make people understand what bioeconomy is about, and to want them to have bioeconomy products, let's say, to make them understand also what society is aiming at, what they're wanting to do. Innovation capacity development, something that's Very important also in Europe, we don't just have to stop at the idea at the academic level, but we have to see if we can put it forward into some pilot scale experiments, into some pilot scale products. And this can also only be done if we stand the role of business and take business into this. And this will also, of course, increase the value at the end. For the German Bioeconomy Council, we see this value chain that you start with a biomass, which is maybe the lowest value as per se, and the direct biomass use was as soon as you go into processing bio-based product and put in design pharma bionics, then you create a higher value. And depending on what the country or the nation is, you can put in more or less knowledge components. For a country just Germany, we are not very good in we're not having much biomass. Maybe we should buy from Scandinavia some biomass. But what we should, on the other, invest into is putting more knowledge into this and setting up processes and intelligent products from this, just as to find the right way for each country. The establishment of good governments, we really need to get into dialogue with civil society. We have started, as a Bioeconomy Council, started this very directly to get a feeling what people are thinking about bioeconomy, and we're very happy to find that there are lots of ideas in society that can be answered and can be fulfilled with this. We have to look into sustainable production, of course, and bioeconomy is something that's international, so international policy, and so it's well that this is an international workshop to talk about this. And also on the monitoring, I mentioned that before. And finally, the third point was to get into international dialogue. Probably what we started to think about are some flagship projects that can be discussed more internationally to bring people together. That could be something like a bioprincipled city, or it could be something that's more the aquaculture or using marine resources, where it's not just a national but international perspective. And of course, we are thinking of having a second Global Bioeconomy Summit to follow up this work and put this into a next step. And finally, last slide, on the cornerstones, and we can talk about this, what are the drivers? We think the cornerstones are of the bioeconomy use biological resources, identify the potential and talk about it, use the function and knowledge on biological resources, so you see innovation and research is basic. We need, as we said before, to address societal needs and have an open dialogue. This comes to the point of the narrative again, and also to my point, I want to make that society can be the driver, maybe the best driver of bioeconomy. This includes that we educate people, also talking about things we are doing, cross-sector innovation, value networks. This is something people are living already, but we have to follow this up. And circular economy, let's bioeconomy become a part of it, but maybe we come to exactly this problem. There is no waste in bioeconomy, so maybe it doesn't work in the same way as it has been discussed before, but it's a perfect way to think about biological biomass and things that you develop. And last but not least, we have to get bioeconomy into sustainable development discussion and climate action discussion to make it to anchor it to further points in the policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lang, and you will later also come back to the panel, and there you will have the opportunity to put questions to her direct. Now, before the coffee break, we have one more intervention, and that is Professor Markku Ollikainen, University of Helsinki, and chair of the Finnish Climate Change Panel, Science Perspective on Bioeconomy Strategies. Please take the floor.
Distinguished Chair, ladies and gentlemen, science and bioeconomy. Bioeconomy is a policy slogan, and always when we scientists encounter a policy slogan, it receives a lot of attention. Actually, any policy slogan is a challenge to scientists. It's a personal challenge and a challenge to whole society, because it requires us to think policy matters from different perspectives from different framework than we are used to do. Because now we are required to give answers to a very definite question. It is also a puzzle to academic audience, because while politicians can afford to have loose concepts, scientists should not. So we need to try to trace out what actually is the content, what are the dimensions, and what is the meaning of the given slogan. And this is what has happened with the bioeconomy concept as well. We have examined the motivation and the meaning of the concept. We have studied how it relates to other policy notions, and we have discussed and analyzed about how the stakeholders like primary producers or industry has received the notion. In this presentation, I will give some highlights on this work. I think this we know quite well, and it has been present in previous talks. So bioeconomy as a notion is very closely related to the main challenges that the humankind now faces. Climate change has been mentioned here. We need to reduce CO2 emissions so that we can keep the average global temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius and try to pursue even for 1.5. And in this work, we need all means of reducing emissions, and we know that the forest-based products can do so. Furthermore, we know by Paris Agreement that by the latter half of this century, emissions must be balanced by sinks, and forests are a very large sink. The other main challenge for the humankind is population growth and the increase of middle class. By 2050, we are more than 9 billion, and by 2030, we estimate that 2 billion people enter middle class. This means a radical increase in material consumption. This means that we need to be able to provide food to a very large population. And again, we know that we can link, and bioeconomy very tightly links to meeting these challenges. It can help us, of course, to safeguard food supply, but it also helps us to meet the energy and resource availability requirements. The third main challenge is poverty eradication. It is a very difficult socio-economic and political problem, but here again, bioeconomy may play a role. It helps us to combat famine, and it may provide poor rural people income, and thus help there to increase the standard of living. The fourth challenge mentioned here is actually related and partly created by the three first ones. We need to shift to low-carbon economies, and it is well known that it is a costly enterprise. And we must find ways of doing it in a creative way so that we can maintain economic growth and jobs. And here we think that bioeconomy might help a lot. Taking another angle, if we want to think what bioeconomy is, what is the situation? And what is sort of the place to which this notion has been given. I narrow my discussion on forest-based sector only. Joseph Schumpeter was an economist who had a slogan that economists always need creative destruction, because entrepreneurs need profits, and the only way is to kill old and badly working firms and industries and find new ones. And actually, if you look at the situation in forest-based sector, we have a situation where we have very strongly changing structures. Perhaps it's right to say that we are in a situation where we have creative destruction of the forest-based sector. There are forces that enforce traditional forest sector to take steps. The most important one of those is that for many forest products, the market is mature. If a market is mature, making profits is only possible by saving costs, but it has limits. The other way making profits is to make innovation. And that's why this is a strong enforcing driver towards a new system, and this new system I here label bioeconomy. There are, of course, many other things, like competitive advantages have changed around the world for forest production, and of course, this European Union's economic recession has been a very bad thing for all. At the same time, we have factors that help the shift to bioeconomy. Climate and energy policies has been mentioned many times, and also the other that I personally regard as a very important one, and it is technological progress and the possibilities that it opens to all industries that are using forests. They allow new products, they help us to be more resource efficient. If I combine this to the fact that European Union has now very large forest stock that has been increasing, is increasing, it means that we have technological possibilities and we have sufficient supply to do something radically new. A thing that we have not witnessed so much in traditional forest sector is, of course, services and digitalization that was mentioned here. It will, in the future, help us a lot. Taking just a slightly more concrete look at these creative and destructive forces, I would say first that the demand for communication papers has decreased and will decrease. And the demand for many other papers has stagnated. That justifies a thing about maturity of the market. We have witnessed the changes in this comparative advantage, mainly in the form that some investment have shifted regionally. The fast-growing markets in Asia, they are inviting industries that are promoting those soft papers, as Minister Rehn mentioned. And on the other hand, there are areas like South America from which we can produce pulp with very low production of costs. So these will fundamentally change the situation for traditional forest industries. Luckily, as Minister said, there is increasing demand for pulp from these boreal forests, which has saved our production. The creative forces are, of course, much more interesting. What we are now witnessing is that the forest industry and many other industries that are using forest-based materials, they are changing and revising their business strategies. And they are starting to invest to new forest-based products. From demand side, there is also a change. Actually, quite surprised, new demand for old products exists. Examples were given already, dissolved pulp for textiles or tall oil for biodiesel. And for bioeconomy of forest sector, the good thing is that in many cases this demand is driven by the need to have forest-based materials to replace non-sustainable products or materials that compete with food production, or then materials that are from fossil fuels. And actually, we know and technology allows that we can use wood fiber to produce all same products that we can manufacture from fossil raw materials. So in this sense, the scene is very promising. And it is this from which I would like to draw the key features for forest-based bioeconomy. I would like to see that we set a new goal. It is a competitive, advanced, and climate-smart bioeconomy. It is not based on what we are used to do. It is based on what we should and what we will do. New business models which which go towards consumers, new bioproducts and new industries, traditional forest industry, of course, but also textile, pharmaceutical industries, more services in the market. It is the most rapidly growing industry almost everywhere. And of course, we would have these traditional products, pulp and paper, biofuels and bioenergy. But the new advanced climate-smart bioeconomy would be an industry or area where we produce high value-added products and which has much lower dependence on business cycles than we previously have used to. But of course, achieving this goal, it has many challenges ahead. I would like, in this occasion, just mention three. First is related to climate change. We know already that carbon price has entered forest-based sector. Carbon price impacts directly by encouraging production of bioenergy, biofuels and biomaterials. And thereby it impacts through derived demand also forest management. But what we have not done yet is that we haven't optimized, we haven't thought that what would be the best way that the forest would contribute to climate mitigation. This, what so far has happened, is just adaptation to climate policies tailored elsewhere. But the time is to think how we find the best way for the forest product-based sector to contribute to climate policies. This means that we must balance wisely wood use, enhanced zinc and material substitution. We can have them both. We do not have to compromise possibilities of production and growth, but we can do better than we do now. And this is a point where also the question of carbon neutrality enters the picture. I give just a brief comment in the next slide. The other challenge, and this is a challenge for policymakers especially, is that there are important trade-offs in developing forest bioeconomy in the short run and in the long run. Bioenergy may be important up to 2030, perhaps 40, but its role may decrease over time. Why? Because in energy production, wind and solar and new solutions will continue their increase. Transport, most likely electric cars will conquer, and there will be other fundamental changes in transport. So the question is how much to rely on bioenergy and how much to invest in other new biomaterials. The other thing that is related, especially, for instance, the European Union's becoming policy initiative concerning land use change, and forestry. We are expecting for a proposal in July, and it relates to harvesting emissions and sinks in the short and in the long run. The discussion of carbon neutrality has been pretty heated here in Finland, in Europe, and actually all over the world, because scientists have started to think more concretely how various uses, especially the energy use of wood, will impact climate. Natural scientists have invented the notion of carbon debt, and their calculations vary a lot, but many argue that in the short run, using increasingly wood for bioenergy will increase first emissions, but it will produce climate benefits in the longer term. But the horizon of climate policies is about 50 years. So how to balance these short-term and long-term aspects is an open question, at least among scientists who are strongly of different opinions on this matter. And for sure, this then translates also to policy discussions. The third sort of trade-off in the short and in the long run is related to the fact that Finland, for instance, now is investing in sort of old pulp, very well known over the couple of 100 years. Now we are taking this shift. Many people have asked, are we going backwards? And then the thing is how we sort of, in a sense, go back to the old so that we can promote new in the long run. This is related to many things, like we can use and we should use the profits from pulp production to the other elements of bioeconomy, like this Äänekoski multi-bioproduct factory. It's very well possible that to finding out and developing many biomaterials need to be done in association with pulp production. Because pulp mills gather timber from in huge masses. We can use, for instance, the bark of spruce to produce raw material for medicine. They are then in the pulp mill, easy case to take them out from the bark. And branches and other things, they have been collected in pulp mill, around the pulp mills, and they are easy to take for further production. So, but the thing is that we have to take care that this happens. If this happens, then investing in old means investing in the new. But this is really a challenge to achieve. The third thing has been discussed here already. It's improving policy coherence. Policy coherence, if you take the definition of vertical coherence, means that if we have any policy program that is targeting a given sector, it should not, it should support policies, other policies targeting other sectors. At least it should not contradict those. So we should find a balance between quite many policies targeting forest-based sector. Of course, climate policies and bioeconomy policies must be coherent. Likewise, we cannot neglect biodiversity. So we have to think how to improve bioeconomy while keeping biodiversity at a good level. We need, in general, a sustainable solution for these policy coherent things. This is a matter of how we write directives, how we write laws, and this should be the expertise of not only research but also policy making. And of course, if we have coherent policies, they boost the sectors that we are wanting to develop. And it's especially important that the policymakers create synergies with the practical policy programs. And there are at least two which are very important for forest-based bioeconomy. One is innovation program, as mentioned here, and the other is those industrial programs. They too are needed to help bioeconomy to evolve. So summing up, from science view, the notion of forest bioeconomy and forest bioeconomy especially is a very welcome policy initiative. But we have to understand that the notion goes much beyond what we do now. It is reaching something new and something more advanced and more profitable than our current performance does. Therefore, we need to boost those creative aspects and forces that we have in the forest sector. If we do this in a determined way, I'm sure that we will achieve much with forest bioeconomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ollikainen.
So now we continue with the panel discussion, so you can start thinking about your potential questions or comments. We have a new speaker now in the panel, so we will start from her. We have the pleasure to have with us Sofia Santos, who is Secretary General for the Portuguese Business Council for Sustainable Development. Is that correct? Sofia is an economist. She has really a wide experience. She has been working in the banking. She has been doing research. She has even been working for the Portuguese pulp and paper industry. She just published this year a book on the green economy. And I would like to start the panel discussion with a question to Sofia, reflecting a bit on the general picture. And I would like to ask you, how do you see in this rapidly changing, rather volatile economic environment, you know, the potential of attracting new investors? We heard during the presentation today how to attract investors to finance the bioeconomy. How to do that in practice, you know? What is our hook? Is this sustainability, ethical question, an attractive potential hook to attract investors? And also, since you are from Portugal and we didn't have any intervention from Southern Europe, okay, I am from Barcelona, but I am more a Finn now than a Spaniard. You can also reflect a bit from a Portuguese, you know, point of view. How do you feel about the bioeconomy? What do you sense?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And having said this, well, being from the southern countries, I feel like a different animal in the room. So I'll try to, you know, give you some overview about our views in the southern part of the world, but that's just in a few minutes. Well, trying to answer your question, I would basically join two issues which were referred in the last two presentations, which is the issue of sustainable development. So basically, well, I think if we, you know, looking at bioeconomy as a driver and as a growing potential sector of economy, it needs to be linked with the concept, it needs to be really linked with the concept of sustainability and sustainable development. Well, basically because if we are dealing with nature and taking into account why we are here, why are we discussing the potential of bioeconomy, it's because, well, different reasons, but basically we also, in the Occidental economies, we consume high levels of consumption, too much, we consume too much, and on the other side, we also have the rest of the world that is going to grow, and people will need to consume different sorts of goods. So there is here a trade-off in a combination between we in European countries maybe trying to find smart ways of consumption of goods and then different consumption, but eventually decreasing the amount of consumption that we will make in the future that will be eventually compensated with smarter consumption made by other countries that are growing in terms of population. But then again, I mean, the bioeconomy here brings a different stage and can bring, together with the whole concept of green economy, because as Jeffrey Sachs also says, we might be going through the sixth wave of technology change, and where the green economy can be a main pillar. And here, of course, the bioeconomy can also have a key role to play in terms of technology change. But in order to not commit the same mistakes that generally the market economy committed in the past, which is overconsumption of resources, then maybe when we look at the bioeconomy potential and the alternatives of bioeconomy, we need to understand well, the economic value of the ecosystem services that were also referred here. So we can hear throughout the presentations quite a lot of emphasis on biomass and on the potential that nature has in producing new goods. So nature plus industrial production, smart industrial production can provide goods to be consumed, but also maybe we should take into account the ecosystem values, the ecosystem services that are underneath that idea. So should we also take into account the ecosystem services, the positive and the negative impacts, the economic value of the ecosystem services that are either created or destroyed when I'm producing a specific bioproduct? And should we do a full life cycle analysis and try to analyze what is the best bioproduct in terms of sustainable development? So this is something that I think it's over the three last presentations touched upon that issue, and I think that's quite relevant because there are other services that forest also produces. And of course I'm talking about this because coming from the south, for us bioeconomy can have different sectors, or for us probably the stronger bioeconomy areas might be different from the Nordic countries. But then again, that's why countries are different, because ecosystems are different and nature is different. And then building on that, on the differences that several people here express the need to respect the differences between countries. And once again, I'm trying to just go back and avoid, or at least trying to avoid the same mistakes we did in the past. So if we are dealing with bioeconomy, where it depends on the local ecosystems. So a local ecosystem here it's different from Germany, and it's different from Spain, it's different from Portugal. If you aim to have a unique regulation, European regulation, that might, I don't know, I'm not a policymaker, I'm just giving you some doubts. Having a unique framework might not be the best in terms of the common goal of European well-being. And when we are dealing with nature, we cannot discuss with nature. So we cannot sit down and say, well, now nature, you have this ecosystem, I want you to transform yourself into another ecosystem. That doesn't work. So basically, that's when the linkage can come also together with the possibility of including other sorts of potential bioeconomy segments, such as the tourism. Is tourism one part? Could tourism be a part of the bioeconomy? I'm just questioning. Could the green infrastructures be included in the bioeconomy sector? So, and these are slightly different approaches, which also have an economic value, and eventually can be taken into consideration when each country is doing a balance between what is the best sustainable development outcome in terms of the bioeconomy. If we measure what is the potential of bioeconomy in different countries, you have different options. And what I'm just saying is that it would be interesting to keep this in mind and see how would that be possible for Europe to have this flexibility in order to incorporate different ecosystem services and different economic values that come from these ecosystem services. Just as a concrete example, and now going back a bit to Portugal. Last month we had 4.5 days of full renewable energy production. So for 4.5 days we had CO2, I can say, well, CO2 zero emissions. Which means, of course, we need also in Portugal to decrease our dependency on fossil fuels, but due to different strategies, in the past we had a strong renewable, we also have biomass, but we have the hydropower, which means that, for instance, for us, the usage of wood eventually in terms of producing a low carbon energy might not be so significant or such a stronger need as in other countries, even because we also have front-runner pulp and paper sector that has a final product with very high value. As you referred, the previous speaker referred to the need to produce high-value final products. So in that case, for instance, in the South, we have a different we see bioeconomy with different sources of opportunities. That's the point I just wanted to make. And once again, that's why the differences need to be respected, because at the end of the day, Europe has this ecosystem because there are different small ecosystems and all of them work together so that we can have the Europe we have. And when we are dealing with bio things, we are starting to interact deeply with nature, and we must be careful to not to use the nature in a way that it's not self-destructing, in a way that we don't destruct the ecosystems, even if we are using it. So this is just, but if we, as you said before, if we take into account in every analysis, if we take into account the Sustainable Development Goals, to try to see how a specific production can comply with Sustainable Development Goals, then I think many of these risks would be minimized. Trying to respond to your question now. But I think this is relevant because if this nowadays, I mean, all of you from companies, most of you either have a sustainability report or those that are listed in the stock exchanges, you receive questions from the analysts that are from the social responsible investment funds, and you might say, well, they are very small and very few. They are very small and few, but it's a growing market, and gradually the financial system will be asking much more questions about your sustainability practices than ever before. Even at European level, there are some documentation that I've come across that indicates that we might be going for the eco label of investment funds. So even money will have some kind of eco label indicating if that specific fund takes into account environmental and social issues. So what I'm trying to say is that if we don't embed this into any bioeconomy project, we need to, because it's part of, if you are successful and looking for a company, you need to incorporate in your business really this topic. So that's why in order to attract investment, I think you need to look forward. So you need to understand how the world might be, of course, in 10 and 15 years. And on those grounds, the issues of sustainable finance will be much more present than today. And of course, then it's the typical language. You need to identify, be very clear on the message in terms of the risks and the business opportunities, but always business opportunities taking into account sustainability criteria. There's very easily, we forget the sustainability criteria. When it comes to decisions in terms of money, very easily, we kind of prefer the short term than the long term. It's part of our mindset. We need to change this mindset, but it's natural. So we need to really be concerned about, when it comes to investment decisions and money investing, take into account all these topics. Also, and some European documents refer that, the fiscal measures. Well, I think as everything that is new, and it happened in the past with different sectors, but especially with this one that has stronger investment costs to begin with. I think there is a need also to create the demand and the supply, to have some kind of the fiscal policy also play a ground in terms of either to incentivize consumption from the consumer side, and then eventually to have different VAT taxes for bioproducts. It's something that if Europe wants to do, can do it. And or on the other hand, also in terms of the production side, to have some tax incentives if you are producing bioproducts, or if you have these concrete specific concerns, and also on the investment side. So if you are a bank and you are lending money to a specific product or a specific company that is producing a bioproduct, maybe in terms of fiscal issues, the things can go around. I mean, Holland has developed the Green Fund in the 80s, and with this triangular approach. So it was some deduction for the consumers, also some deduction for the companies, and then the banks got involved. And by doing this triangular approach, it was possible to develop a set of green projects and even what was called green banks in Holland, and we can see that was much stronger in Holland than in many other countries in Europe. So to finalize is these fiscal measures, of course, access to finance, not only about the European funds, they are very complex to get it, and you need to be a very strong company. You need to have lots of years of experience in dealing with the European funds, but maybe at national level also to have specific funds that can help together with the venture capital companies that can help and to promote this kind of approach, and linking that with something that might be a bit, easier for and attractive for young people, which is linking this with sustainability entrepreneurship approach. So linking entrepreneurship with something that has a positive impact. And I think if you link the technology, the IT, and if you link young population, and if you link it with the concerns that usually the millennials have on these topics, we might get a good environment to be able to promote what we could call, or something similar as the sustainable entrepreneurship approach, and by including different people and from different areas, and then of course finally the education. I'm an economist, and it's very difficult to talk about these issues with economists. Because the main questions are they foresee that this is already solved, that the market solves these issues, and the market doesn't solve these issues. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We would already have excellent innovation processes and bioproducts easily. And therefore, it's really relevant to include economists and mainstream managers to understand the difference between the short term and the medium and long term. This is a kind of medium long term approach, and we have the mindset, the management mindset is on short term, and that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia, for this new, fresh insight into the issue. Don't worry, I will come back to you for questions, but I will put a few more questions to the panelists, if you can answer shorter now. Mr. Aho, something that was not mentioned today, but I think Christine already signaled it in her presentation. What about the situation with the low oil prices and other commodities and materials like steel, for example? It's going down. Is this a risk for the bioeconomy, or is rather an opportunity? How do you see this global picture? And then, if you can elaborate a bit also on the role of Scandinavia and the Nordic countries in leading the bioeconomy. There are big players like China, India, trying to move towards that direction. What is the competitive advantage of the Nordic countries?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. For the first, I think fundamental problem, both in business and government and decision making, both is that we are so committed to linear thinking. So we believe that the same trends we are used to have will be continued. And think back, 1972. Few of you have not been born 72, but I was privileged to see that year. And you remember the Club of Rome published its report, and it predicted. You remember that? Yeah. We are two. Yeah. And in that report they predicted that we are running out of oil, and that was maybe the most important conclusion, or run out of fossil fuels, and that was dominant thinking until 2012. I went to the United States, to Harvard, and I saw one report published by one Italian professor who spent time at Harvard, and he predicted that the United States is going to be second biggest oil producer in the world by 2020. And then discussion started, and they said, no, in no way, that is not going to be true. And then a bit later, energy agency came, International Energy Agency came and said that, no, it's wrong. The US is going to be the biggest one. and that was changing the whole story. And now I think that within few years we are coming to a totally new environment. We are thinking, is it so that oil is going to be ending, or is it possible so that the use of oil will end before oil resources and oil reserves. And my guess is that this latter one is more obvious than the first one. But another issue which is familiar to Finns, in that report the Club of Rome said that Chinese and Indians will never be integrated into the global telecommunication networks. Do you know why? Because they expected that there is not enough copper in the world. Very logical conclusion. And they were right. With those premises, they made their calculation. And then suddenly, disruption took place, and mobile technology took over. This is my first comment. Second comment is that when looking at experience from business and government, this linear thinking is one, but second issue is balance between context and concept. We always like business leaders who are making good profit, and we say that they are good leaders, they understand the needs of employees and so on and so on. It's bullshit. It's easy to be a good business leader when your concept is in balance with the context. It's very easy. You don't have to be a fantastic leader. But sometimes it happens that your concept is not anymore meeting the requirements of the context. And it typically happens when context will be changed, not when context is changed, concept is changed, but when the context is changing dramatically. Look back history of Nokia. We are still in Finland fighting and trying to find who to blame. Was it Ollila? was it Stephen Elop? Or who is the person who killed this fantastic story of mobile phones? It was not killed by anyone. It was killed because our concept, or Nokia's concept, which worked beautifully in 1990s, did not work anymore in a new context we faced in 2000s. And to be honest, I don't believe that even a miracle had been able to save Nokia, because in Europe it has been impossible to create a concept which will meet the requirements of the new context. And now the topic, important topic. If you look at the forest industry concept has been very simple: scaling and scaling up. That was the story of forest industry until 2001 or early 2000s. And everyone was working with that, and that was the concept which worked nicely with the context. But since that we have seen dramatic changes. I think that we have all got a lot of evidence that the world is different, and the world is not anymore the same. But is our concept changed? I have not seen any concept yet. This EU material, fantastic material, there was everything mentioned, but nothing. Because that's not a concept. It's an idea that we should do all kinds of things in order to get results, but that's not a concept. Europe is missing that concept, and I really hope that you can provide tools for Europe to create that concept which will work in these circumstances. And finally, what could be the role of Nordic countries, or especially Finland and Sweden? I think we are in a key position, pole position, to make that concept, to assist the European Union to create a reasonable new concept to survive in these circumstances. But it means that we have to be able to decide where the focus is going to be. We cannot do everything. We have to decide what are those sectors where we have to be and we can be best in the world. I think that Henrik is smiling because Henrik Ehrnrooth is saying that material technology is number one and we have to put all assets into that. You probably are right. But we have to have that kind of discussion. Not to decide that we want to have everything, because we cannot. We have to decide we want to have those assets which are creating comparative advantage for Nordics and for Europe in this game. And this is a nice game because winning opportunities are huge. Wind is behind us. And it's much easier to create a good concept, a new concept, when that is the case.
Thank you, Mr. Aho. So, Christine, how is Germany adapting the concept to the context? How do you see the bioeconomy development, the main barriers in Germany to develop it, and the main opportunities as well? What is the comparative advantage of Germany?
That's a good question. I would start, of course, I like to start with opportunities, not with the barriers, because those come anyway. The opportunities, I think, is that Germany seems to have adopted quite nicely, easily, the concept of renewable energy, as example, or electromobility. I would never expected this, that Germany would be the first country to really try to set up a whole innovative system on energy usage, but it seems that they are doing this now. We are doing this now. So really, everybody, society is following this up, and also, of course, politics. So I think this is a very nice way to start getting new thinking into economy in Germany, and I think this concept can be followed up. In this respect, also bioenergy, for example, is only a small part. It's no longer bioenergy as a whole concept, but it's a small part in this, and this is acceptable also to society, I think. And so this is one of the opportunities, or part of the opportunities. The other thing is, in Germany, we have very long have a concept of sustainability and awareness of the need for biodiversity. Well, forest lovers, we don't want to kill it, but anyway, I mean, on the positive side, it means that Germany, the concept of sustainability is well known. So we just have to widen this concept to the bioeconomy and to the circular bioeconomy. We are, I think, the best ones to recycle things from the household. So this is a very nice concept, and which we can follow up. So what that means is that there is probably a societal demand for novel products. And this is something I said before, that I think a driver for the bioeconomy is the demand that comes from the consumer. And I think that is something that Germany can provide. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, that is the same comes true for the barriers, because we are known for having angst to start with novel things. So that could, of course, also be a barrier if something very disruptive and a change of paradigm comes along. But that could be also a barrier in Germany. The most important barrier in Germany to bioeconomy, however, is a good working and a fantastically working chemical industry and automotive industry. Because as long as you have an industry that's working on old concepts, fossil raw materials and fossil processes, it's very difficult to get a change in this. Mm-hmm. So this will be one of the barriers for getting bioeconomy work in Germany, with my opinion.
Thank you, Christine. Mm-hmm. I come back to you, Mr. Persson, in 1 minute, but I want to jump to Mr. Ollikainen, Professor Ollikainen, because Christine mentioned the energy issue, the bioenergy. How do you feel about the exciting and intense discussions on the carbon neutrality of bioenergy here in Finland? I follow in the media, but also in Brussels, everyone is asking me what is the EFI position. As an economist, how do you feel about this discussion? Is it contextualized in the right way?
It's a very difficult question. And as I'm not a natural scientist, it's very, very, very hard to decide who is saying what. But we know this much. Scientists disagree about the carbon neutrality of biomass, of used biomass for bioenergy. And the results, following the counting rules that are related to the carbon sink, people's opinions differ in respect to 4 issues. One is what we should use as a benchmark. Is benchmark the carbon that we actually had when we increased the forest harvesting, or should it be what the forest would produce without harvesting? And people choose different benchmark. The other difference is the time scale. The carbon depth and the payback time seems to differ a lot, from a few years to more than 100 or 200 years, depending on how people treat not only the carbon fixed in the trees, but also what happens to carbon in soils. And then calculation methods differ. People simply receive different results depending on what sort of calculation methods they use. And then if you contrast these three things to the time horizons that are thought to be relevant for climate policies next 50 years, if you have the payback time that is longer than 50 years, there's an alert sign on, and if it's less, then there is not that much to worry about. I think that this discussion at least has showed that there are many safe cases where we can increase energy use, and there are the few things on which the scientists should get an understanding. The problem of this discussion so far has been that the opposing opinions have not been contrasted in a sophisticated way, and the other problem is that it has been remained at the at natural science level. But if we think about how the forest-based sector works and how the economy and prices and costs that drive the solutions, we should be able to look at these things at a broader socioeconomic scale as well to see what actually happens instead of looking just one particular point of the whole chain. So no direct answer, but points to make opinion.
Yes. Thank you, Markku. Now the key question for Mr. Persson. So we heard, Mr. Persson, that the EU is planning now the revision of the EU bioeconomy strategy. The fact that it is led under DG Research also shows that in the past years it has been kept very much in the scientific domain, in the scientific debate. We see that the bioeconomy has clear niches, market niches, but now the challenge is how to bring that as a norm, how to build up political critical mass to bring the bioeconomy to the highest level in the political dimension. What would you do if you were the president of the Commission? How to make that happen? You always say that the difficult thing is to do it. You know, not to know what to do, but to do it. How do we do it? How do we bring the bioeconomy now to the real political debate in an ambitious way?
It's easy. I think it's just to do it, because you need to create facts on the ground. If you have this as an ongoing scientific discussion or a political quarrel, you will always have pros and cons. That is a natural situation, and we need that also as an intellectual preparation for a new phase. But someone needs to be bold enough to take an initiative to invest in the new. And that is perhaps the traditional forestry industry, or it is the chemical industry, or some else. But someone needs to take an investment decision. And as soon as you can prove that this is good business, I'm convinced there will be many who will follow. But before you have that proof, before you have the proof in the pudding, so to say, there will be an ongoing discussion. You can just listen up on this discussion about carbon sink and bioenergy and and you see immediately if you get stuck there, nothing will happen. So we can talk about it, we can discuss it, but someone has to invest in it. And I don't believe so much in pilot projects. Okay, they are interesting as well. But someone who wants to risk their money need to take the decision. And those who risk their money also then have the right to do some good profits from this. Then we have come to a real situation. There is often demands that the public sector should take the risk. No, we should not do that in the public sector. We can prepare for the new situation, but when it comes to the final critical decisions, we need to have the private sector on board, taking the risks. And so far, I have not seen so much. Perhaps we have not been convincing enough. Perhaps we are dealing with wishful thinking in this type of seminars, and perhaps those who are in the real world making the investments are not yet convinced. But someday, someone, somewhere will take the risk, and then it starts. And those who then will come too late will be punished by history. So it is.
Thank you, Mr. Persson. Now the floor is open for your questions or comments. So, Henrik, you want to start? So you are ready to invest your money?
Simple question. You can choose who among the panelists who answers. Do we need EU bioeconomy strategy?
That's really a very good question. Who wants to? Mr. Aho.
I think we don't. What we need is Europe should understand that this is ecosystem game. And in that ecosystem game, they should go through all the EU systems and regulations and policies and to remove everything what is obstacle for making those investments to happen. Göran Persson was speaking about. I think that is what should be done. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of politicians who believe that it is possible to make a big plan and then execute that big plan, and then after 5 or 10 years, something is going to be there. It's not like that. But if you have favorable ecosystem, investments are coming to happen, and then results are there. And it means that we have to check our economic systems, our technological support systems, our funding systems, R&D funding systems, but also our regulatory environment, so that it will be as favorable as possible for bioeconomy. They can call that strategy, but I think it's better not to speak about strategy, because it leads to an idea that EU can do something. They really don't.
Any more reactions, Sofia? You want to compliment?
Yes. Well, I agree in part, even because I just talk about the different ecosystems, so it goes with what you've just said. But I think it's important to have some global guidelines in terms of what are the limits of the human activity on bioeconomy. What are the criteria that we should be using when we are dealing with bioeconomy? Exactly the same way as when we are now acting in other sectors. We have different regulations, environmental, CO2, and so on. And all of bioeconomy must also fulfill with the COP21 targets and with the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm in favor of differentiation, and because every country has its own ecosystem. Every country does not have the same speed, and some positive aspect of the European Union is to raise awareness of specific topics that some countries are more evolved than others, and then the other countries that are not so evolved on the topics, they realize that is also an opportunity that they should take into account, and I'm referring to Portugal and to other countries in Europe, of course. But also I think it's important to have some kind of framework that identifies what might be the criteria that generally the different bioeconomy subsectors must comply with, avoiding extra bureaucracy, avoiding all of that. But if you look at the past, if we don't have some kind of framework, we need to change the mindset of business, and that takes a long time, and then profit maximization comes as a top priority, and when that comes, profit maximization in the short term, when that becomes the main topic, then things might not be sustainable in the long term, and we are all talking about sustainable development.
Thank you, Sofia. So now Mr. Persson and then Christine. Christine, you were... Yeah.
Okay. I would say as long as strategy is kind of umbrella, fine, that's good, because what we need is awareness, the raising of awareness for a topic that otherwise lobbyists of other topics will overrun. And second, it helps to get this governance topic raised. So that's something I would say, yes, we need something. So to have an umbrella, to have a guideline, and also to definitely to raise awareness for the topic. That's
Thank you. Göran?
My point is, I think we already have a bioeconomic strategy. But that is one that ends up in don't use the forests, protect them. And if you look upon what the European Union have decided so far about different directives, it's easy to see it ends up there. You need to have something that balance. And I am roughly of the same opinion as Professor Lang. I think we should have one. But and if we don't go for it with this broad approach, we will have one nevertheless, but that one will not allow us to use our forests de facto.
Thank you. We have two questions from the Commission, from Mr. Harmal and then Sari Artioki from the Commission.
Thank you. Esko, what you said, has it something to do with so-called precautionary principle? Should the European Union visit that? I ask this because to my understanding precautionary principle means that policy makers, decision makers should know every possible consequence or non-consequence before taking a decision. Very often I have said so, if penicillin was invented today, millions of kids would die before the European Parliament would allow it come to the market because of the precautionary principle. Are we in a blocked situation because of, let's say, somehow overemphasizing that precautionary principle?
Yes, please, reaction.
Yeah, this is very, very good point. I will take an example from other sector, healthcare. We know that electronic patient record systems will make healthcare system much better than what it is today. But when we are looking at risks, our risk analysis is not symmetric, but it's asymmetric. Even this week, somebody is dying in Finland because of lack of that kind of system. We don't have that yet. And people are dying because physicians do not have access to information they need to give right kind of care. People are dying, but we don't care. We don't really care about that at all. But when new electronic patient record system, or part of that, was tested once, and one patient died because overdosing, and the system gave wrong indication, and he died. Immediately, authorities came, it became public discussion, authorities came and said, you cannot continue this project before you can guarantee that no one will be killed because of this new kind of system. So we accept existing problems, but we don't accept any risk related to new. And I'm speaking about innovation a lot. Have you heard about an innovation which doesn't include any risk? So what has been innovated in the world without taking risk? I cannot imagine any. And that's why I think this is the typical European Union approach, that we will take into the consideration all the aspects, and that means that we are blocking everything to be changed. We have huge number of strategies. And have you heard about a strategy which has been executed? No. And that's why my approach is a bit different. I believe that the best way to move on is to remove obstacles. And that could be probably a much better way to get results, and also to get companies excited about that. And unfortunately, profit making is the only way to get investments to the sector. So we cannot say that you cannot do good profit, maximum profit. Do as much money as you can, and then we will get companies to invest in this sector. We have to create that kind of atmosphere. And then regulatory process have to take care of that there is a balance between different kind of aspects. And that is where regulator is needed.
Thank you. Yes, you want to comment on that? And then I will pass to, I think the Commission should say something now. So.
Thank you. My name is Sari Artjoki. I'm a commission official and a forest owner, so there are this is a possible combination. So I was going to ask you actually before Esa's question is that now that the Commission and the EU will anyways revise the bioeconomy strategy, I would be very interested to hear one point from each of you. What is there that you need to see in this strategy, or would the conclusion of today is that we would be better off without a strategy? I think it's always a good idea to bear in mind that if there is a strategy work going on about you, it's better that you say what you need to see there, or then the conclusion, the easy way out would be to conclude that we do not need a strategy.
Thank you. Who would like to start making a point? I think you, Markku?
Yeah. I comment actually on strategy and also this Baltic Sea bioeconomy action plan. There's a huge difference between the current strategy and the action plan. The action plan forgets everything. It forgets forestry, it forgets climate, it forgets environment. So as a sort of concrete program for implementing strategy it is failed to my mind. The strategy itself is much more balanced than was this bioeconomy action plan, but of course it has a problem of being, how do I say, very loose. Good principles, but then what actually needs to be done to facilitate the progress? I know it's awfully difficult, but that is sort of the level that is missing. It's missing from the EU strategy, I think also in the Finnish strategy. Perhaps partly because it's very difficult to find the simple, direct ways of promoting things, but that would be my wish.
Mm-hmm. Göran, you want to comment?
One size doesn't fit all. That is the first thing I want to start with. The second thing is to see that we have the right and obligation to use our forests in an industrial process to combat climate change, to make that clear. Mm-hmm. And then how we do it depends on in which part in Europe we live. One size doesn't fit all.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Christine?
Very similar conclusion. It has to respect the national and regional aspects, but on the other hand, it can help to raise visibility for bioeconomy. And I think if that is achieved, much is achieved. And the third thing is put it into integrated with the climate topics and integrated with the sustainable development topics, and then make it a part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Aho.
I think there are a couple of areas where governments can really play a big role, and I'd like to concentrate in those. And the two fundamental areas are education. Do we have skills and talents we need for bioeconomy? I think no. We have to improve the situation, and that is an area where EU can play a role and governments can play a role. Second area is fundamental research and focused efforts in that area, to those areas where we really do have capacity to become the best in the world and to create comparative advantage in Europe. Henrik will say again, material technology.
Thank you. Before I pass the word to Sofia, just to say goodbye to Mr. Persson. He needs to take a plane, but an applause for his contribution. Thank you. Back to your forest, Göran. So, Sofia, please continue.
Well, I agree with what was said here in the table in relation with the European bioeconomy strategy. And I would add eventually also the need to recognize the ecosystem services that might also be considered as part of the bioeconomy in a clear way. Yes. So be very clear about what are the ecosystem services that can be considered as part of the bioeconomy. somehow include the need to, throughout the process or when countries and companies are analyzing the options, to actually also evaluate economically the economic value of the ecosystems that are being destroyed or created out of that technology or out of that process. And I completely agree with Christina in the sense that include this and relate the strategy also with the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, because each country will have to comply, or at least will have to provide information about how each country is contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. This will reach each individual company as well. And in this case, it makes complete sense to also include the perspective of the bioeconomy, including the perspective of the targets and the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you, Sofia. Questions? Comments, questions? I come to you, Henrik, soon. But there are two questions there at the end. I see one from Germany. Yes.
Hello, my name is Thomas Hausmann from the Ministry of Agriculture in Germany. I would like to come back from the political level, maybe to forest management. And my point here is the enlargement of the raw material basis, so increasing of the timber production. Because, of course, you might need additional timber if you want to implement these kind of strategies. And of course, there are different possibilities to increase this production. One would be to afforest additional land to increase the forest area. In Germany, we have a big debate to put even more forest set aside, to have wilderness area, 2% of our German forest. So the tendency is going in a different way. You could, of course, argue that the conversion of conifer stands to broadleafs should be changed again. This is not very popular, I believe, in our society. You could argue that you should reduce the age of the tree before cutting it. This is also not very popular because we want to increase our deadwood. We would like to have thick trees. You could, of course, also discuss about invasive species, replacing those native species which are affected by invasive fungi or insects, like the ash dieback in Germany. The elm, of course, is well known. So all these are points which might be difficult to implement the strategy to get even more raw material. And I would be interested to know if this is a discussion also in other countries, Finland, Sweden, and what are your reactions on this, also from the research point? Thank you. Maybe my colleague, or should I stop here?
Let's take another one. Yeah, good idea. Let's take another one.
Yeah, hello, my name is Tilman Schatzig from the Agricultural Ministry in Germany as well. And maybe my comment and question goes more towards the direction what we have been talking about now before, if we need or not a European bioeconomy strategy. And I was quite surprised actually that first of all the question came up, because I think of course we need one. And then I was surprised of the answers as well. I don't think the question is if we need one or not, because rather a strategy also shows a willingness to do something. And if on a European level we want to implement the bioeconomy, and I think all in the room here we are clear with that, we want to do that, then of course you have to formulate that somewhere. And I'm a little bit, now speaking maybe a little bit from my heart, I'm sick and tired of this discussion of regionality. Of course, regionality is important. And we know that the bioeconomy here will be different than what a bioeconomy in Germany looks like. But it's the same with a fossil economy. I mean, where's the difference? Even in Germany, we have our national policy strategy, and that is being implemented in different ways on a regional level. But why not? So, from my point of view, we need a European bioeconomy strategy. Of course, one size doesn't fit all, but it depends on what level you are at. If you set out where you want to reach and more or less come up with valid principles for whole Europe, that is something we can work with, and then on a national level it can be implemented. Even if that means taking or reducing boundaries, for example, to implement things or for investment. That's a strategy too already. So I think we should have a national, we should have a European bioeconomy strategy as well to make clear what we are talking about. When we saw the presentations here, I noticed that there's a strong mixture between, or a tendency to mix bioeconomy and circular economy. And on the European level, I saw that, I noticed that too. From a German point of view, circular and bioeconomy are two different concepts. They're strongly interlinked, but still it's two different things. So I think we should rather focus a little bit on, if everybody wants to find himself in the European bioeconomy strategy, how and where can we put the input? So my question doesn't go that much to the panel, but rather to the Commission. How and where can the member states and as well the stakeholders influence and deliver input to the revision of the bioeconomy strategy, which is still which is already ongoing now? Thank you.
Thank you. You make a very clear comment. While the Commission is thinking if there is an answer for that question, can you, Lauri, answer to the concern by Thomas? Do we have enough wood in Europe to meet the supposed increasing demands? And I want to link your question, Thomas, with a speech of Commissioner Vella 2 weeks ago in Brussels, where he mentioned that there will be a demand increase of 40% of wood in the next 15, 20 years. Is that the case, Lauri? You are one of the best experts in the market.
Thank you. So I'm Lauri Hetemäki, Assistant Director of EFI. There was 2010 a study called EU Wood Study, basically saying that if we have this 2020 policy increasing, for example, biomass-based bioenergy, we will come to a situation where in EU countries the demand for forest biomass will increase 70% from 2020 to 2030. If you look at that study more closely and you look at what is actually happening in the market, since 2007 the industrial roundwood production in the EU has been declining. That is because of the economic downturn, but it's also because of structural things. So I guess my first comment is that we really need to reassess about the biomass demand that will be there for 2030, especially with the new policies. Nobody really knows what it will be. And I would caution about thinking that there will be a huge increase in the numbers. I give another example. 20th century forest-based bioeconomy was two. By two, I mean it was basically pulp and paper industry and wood products industry. When you talk about this century, forest biomass-based bioeconomy, the key word is diversification. We have heard today about Äänekoski, which will produce 1.3 million tons of pulp. 2 weeks ago, I visited Borregaard, a Norwegian pulp mill, which is just thinking of doubling its nanopulp production from 5,000 to 10,000 tons. The scale is completely different. Diversification means that for somebody, the bioeconomy means very high value products like vanilla for Borregaard. For others, it means scaling up the production. So the diversification is the key word. Some of the products will need more wood, some will not. They will need less than in the past. What is the net effect? Nobody really knows. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauri. Henrik has a question, but does the Commission has an answer? You? Wait.
Thank you. Maybe just 1 or 2 sentences. There's a whole process and there's a whole calendar about reviewing the bioeconomy strategy, and you find this actually in the PDF of my presentation, which we will make available to everybody, because I didn't so much insist on the details. There has been in Utrecht a conference, bioeconomy stakeholder conference. They've produced a manifesto, which is an ongoing process. There will be an expert group meeting later in the autumn. There is, under the Slovak presidency, another bioeconomy conference. So it's a whole process which will go on this whole year and also into the next year. And there are plenty of opportunities to provide input. And of course, it is clear that the next bioeconomy strategy is meant to be, just to use maybe a modern word, co-created together with the stakeholders. So it's of course the internal services, the different commission departments, they have a role to provide input. It's the member states through different, through the SCAR, through GPIs, through ERANET, through the program committee. It's input and ideas which come from the BBI, from the advisory groups. Let's say if you look from the regions, we get knowledge from the JRC, the Bioeconomy Observatory. There's a whole ecosystem of bioeconomy governance, which is not only European, it's also national, it's regional, and they all are engaged in this co-creation process. Thanks.
Thank you for the answer. Last question, and then we need to go to the concluding remarks. If anyone wants to get it, Henrik, you want to have the last question? Henrik, you can put them later.
Thank you for putting forward a question. My name is Mr. Falk. I'm running a business network with SMEs in the southwest of Sweden. We heard Mr. Persson mentioning about investments in bioeconomy with or without a new or an old bioeconomic strategy. My question is, I can't even encourage SMEs to buy a new car who's not run on petrol or diesel, because there is no long-term decisions made by politicians what will be the taxes and so forth 2 or 3 years ahead. There might be an election coming up and so on. So asking for any big investments within bioeconomy with millions of euros without any long-term decisions is, to me, sitting back home and wish for improvements. My question was primarily to Mr. Persson, but I also would like to address it to Santos and your economic point of view. Could we have an even better cooperation in between private and public sectors in the European Union? Thank you.
Thank you, Sofia.
Oh, that's a tough question. But yes, you're right. I think, I mean, not even if for some seconds we go away from the bioeconomy, generally the existing tax system is a problem for companies, because we really don't know generally what might the taxes be in the next 1-2 years. Countries changes in European rules are not so clear, and suddenly a particular issue comes up and the tax system changes. So I completely agree with you. I think it's everything that is related with the green economy, and then in particular with bioeconomy. There are no clear indications about the type of tax incentives, even because when we come and we start talking about tax incentives, then the other thing that comes immediately is the competitiveness, even in relation with the other sectors, and if actually European Union wants or is willing to have specific tax, allow for specific fiscal systems in different countries, because by doing that it's indirectly making some countries growing faster than others, and is that a political issue, or is that just leave it for the market? So there is these philosophical approaches as well, and that are related with the way we see the economic development of countries. But I completely agree with you, and I would say that yes, I think throughout all of this topic of green economy and bioeconomy, there is a strong linkage between companies, government, and financial system. And these three, they have different goals, different targets in terms of what they are made for, but the general outcome for the next economic model that is about to emerge, these three need to talk, because most of the mainstream banking, either you go there and you have lots of assets and therefore you are not risky, they will lend you money, but otherwise the bioeconomy models might be a bit difficult for the mainstream banking to understand what the risk and the opportunities are. It's a different language. So they also need to have their risk some kind minimized, in a way minimized. And also the public money. Okay, we might need some public incentive also for that, so that the private sector comes in with more money, and then the banking sector goes in. So basically, I agree with you in the sense that we need to have a stronger conversation between the players and definitely put the financial sector on the spot, because without the money, without the flow, if the flow of money doesn't go on, is not aligned with this type of topics, then either we only go for public money, which we seen that eventually is not the best opportunity, or the private sector also needs to take a risk, but the money needs to be aligned with this type of goals, and it has been difficult to align the money with these goals, and that's another challenge. I was not able to respond very directly to your question, but that's as best as I can.
Thank you, Sofia. Now, Mr. Aho, you can move to the concluding remarks.
Yeah, I think it's time to conclude now, because wine is waiting for us. And is it bioproduct? Yes, it is. So we can start enjoying bioeconomy in a very concrete way quite soon. But before that, you have to listen for a while my concluding remarks. What was the last big success, industrial success story in Europe, where Europe took the lead in the world for a while and was doing huge good business, improving mobile telephones? Do you remember, did we have mobile technology strategy of the European Union? No, we didn't. But we did many good strategic decisions in Europe. GSM standard, adopted in Copenhagen 1987, played a huge role in creating business opportunities. And it was public-private effort. Standardization, regulatory environment, which was very critical. R&D spending. Europe was investing in this sector heavily, long period of time, and that helped companies to become world-class in this sector. Education. We trained people who had capacities needed for mobile technology. And then finally, we opened the market for competition. We made it possible that companies made money when investing in this sector. I was in the Parliament of Finland when that decision was made in 1986. And it was one of the best decisions ever made in the Finnish Parliament, but we did not know what we were doing, because we didn't believe that. We expected that this is going to create competition between fixed line companies. But we actually made a huge hole in the system, and mobile technology was able to come through thanks to that decision. And Finland was, by the way, second in Europe after the UK, roughly in the same time with Sweden. I took this example only to introduce what should we do in order to get something to be done. Not to make plans, but open opportunities, and to make these opportunities profitable for all, so that there are good incentives for all to work for these purposes. This is very good start for that, I believe, that this type of event. Secondly, have you ever heard about OODA loop? OODA loop. That is a strategy, military strategy used during the Korean War in 1950s. And what these letters OODA means: O, first O, observe. Second O, orient. D, decide. And A, act. If you want to survive as a military pilot in a struggle or in a fighting, you have to use this OODA loop. I think that is a good advice for us as well when we want to get this bioeconomy really go forward and to be executed in Europe. We need this OODA loop. And observations are there. I think we have made a lot of observations today, and we all agree roughly that what the fundamentals are, what the context is going to be. Secondly, orientation. I think we have already orientation as well. So we know that this is the direction we have to go. But now we have two missing links. Decide. And I think this discussion was very good about decision making. It doesn't mean that somebody is going to do one single decision, but we need huge number of good decisions in order to get things to be done. The strategic decisions, maybe without strategy. And then act. And this is the fundamental problem in Europe. If we want to do something to be done, we have to be able to act. And I think we are far away from that. That's why I think this EFI initiative to have this kind of forum or event is very, very important. And it's very important that EFI has decided to take this type of broader role, not only to look at forests and future of forests, but to look at the bioeconomy as a whole. Thank you so much for today's speakers. Göran Persson left already for fighting for better prices for wood products in Sweden, and especially raw material in Sweden. That is what social democrats are doing nowadays in Europe. And all others who have been speaking here today. And especially thank you for all the participants who have made this event a success. And Marc, thank you also for EFI team who has organized this event. Now I think we have deserved bioproducts, but not unlimited. Thank you.
1 minute, because it's not over, the party. Since the wine and the aperitif are sponsored by Forbio project, which is a project coordinated by the Eastern Finland University, I would like to invite the coordinator of Forbio to explain us what is Forbio doing and which wine is in the list.
Okay, thank you, Marc. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here on the behalf of Forbio project, and I would like to say that no drinks are free, so you need to listen me 2 minutes. And Forbio, what does it mean? It's a strategic research project funded by Academy of Finland. And what we do with the Forbio project, it is that we try, or we will provide for decision-making smart, science-based means and support also novel tools to help to enhance in sustainable way to move towards resource efficient and climate neutral forest-based bioeconomy. A lot of promises, by the way. And how we do this? So we have committed to this project a number of key stakeholders in Finland who represent key ministries and also forest bioeconomy actors, and we collaborate with them frequently. And this event today is part of the project in that way that EFI, Lauri Hetemäki, is leading one of the work packages which really is dealing with these policy support matters. And finally, I would like to say that the Finnish government has also put a lot of efforts to support policy making also in bioeconomy, and there is a many strategic research spearhead project ongoing related to this topic. So thanks for the government for that also. So in addition to Forbio, we have a lot of efforts ongoing. And now I think it's time for the wine, and not made by food, I think so. Okay.
Thank you very much.